When my best friend was being bullied by the school bully, I stepped in to help, but I was thrown off the building in retaliation and killed. My parents were utterly heartbroken and knelt at the school gates, begging for the truth, but my best friend, who was the eyewitness, stammered and said she fell by herself. She confessed to the school bully and was rejected, so she couldn't take it. It turned out my best friend had a crush on the school bully and was determined to cover up the truth for the person who tormented her. The internet was flooded with hate, calling me a pathetic simp who deserved to die. Even my parents got dragged into the online harassment and were killed by a hit-and-run driver on their way home. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my best friend was dragged into the stairwell and beaten by the school bully, meeting her pleading gaze. I gave a faint smile. Must be nice, getting hit by someone you like, wishing you a lifetime of happiness together. 1H help, save me. I heard a faint cry for help. Looking around, I saw Lillian on the ground, beaten to within an inch of her life. Her school uniform was in tatters, and her face was covered in nothing but bloodstains and the marks of slaps. At that moment, a group of boys and girls surrounded Lillian, kicking and punching her, when the bully, Kylon, followed Lillian's gaze and looked at me. My body instinctively trembled. The last face I saw before I died was his. He was viciously choking me, sneering as he said, "Talia, for sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, for protecting Lillian, I'll make you suffer the consequences of defying me." I clung desperately to Kylon's hand, looking to Lillian for help, but she averted her eyes. "Talia, you defied Kylon. There's nothing I can do to save you now." I was thrown from the building. The terrifying sensation of weightlessness made me scream. The memory of my bones shattering is still vivid, sending a cold sweat down my back. I've been reborn. The moment I returned was precisely when I first saved Lillian. In my past life, I saw the injustice and rushed over, using my small frame to shield Lillian. I even called the head teacher, which scared off the ringleader, Kylon, and his crew. However, as Kylon left, he shot me a furious, venomous glare. That's how Lillian and I became the closest of friends, but I didn't know back then that my act of heroism would become my death warrant. Lillian's voice sounded again. "Talia, save me, please." Seeing Lillian in such despair reminded me of how I had pleaded with her in the same way in my past life, when I faced retaliation, but she was afraid of crossing Kylon again, so she chose to look the other way. After I died, my parents knelt at the school gates, holding up a banner, pleading for the truth and for justice on my behalf. Yet Lillian, my supposed best friend, told the police and the school that I had a crush on Kylon and jumped to my death after he rejected me. My parents were sobbing uncontrollably. They seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Later, a storm erupted online, with a crowd calling me a pathetic simp and saying I deserved to die. More radical individuals even extended the cyberbullying to my parents, accusing them of failing to raise their child properly and saying they didn't deserve to live either. Every day, someone would throw rotten eggs at our front door. Even so, my parents refused to believe I could be that foolish and kept trying to uncover the truth. The Sia family has a lot of influence in the city. The students at school, afraid of retaliation, all chose to keep quiet. Kylon was worried about being exposed and was also furious at my parents for not taking the hint. Lillian actually said to him with a fawning look on her face, "What could my brother possibly have done wrong? Talia deserved to die. Her parents should have joined her." Incited by others, Kylon, in a fit of madness, hired a hitman to have my parents run over and killed, disguising it as a tragic accident. And Lillian, by climbing over my dead body, she earned Kylon's favor, nestling in his arms. She coquettishly pouted with a bashful look, "I love you so much, big brother, you can't hit me anymore." "Okay, actually, I've had a crush on you for a long time." Kylon pinched Lillian's chin with satisfaction. "I like obedient women." As the words faded, a deep kiss descended. That despicable pair actually killed my parents after I died and had the gall to live happily together. Back then, I was nothing but a lonely, wandering spirit. It was only upon witnessing this scene that I realized Lillian had long harbored a secret crush on Kylon, the bully. My thoughts snapped back to the present. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Lillian still pleading for my help, and I couldn't help but grit my teeth. If I hadn't saved Lillian in my past life, she would have likely ended up in the same miserable fate as me. And to think, after saving her, I considered her my one and only best friend. Now that I've been given a second chance, there's no way I'm making the same mistake again, looking for trouble. Kylon's voice was laced with a chill that sent shivers down one's spine. I have to admit, for all his ruthlessness, Kylon was devilishly handsome. I took a step back and shook my head, just passing through. "Don't mind me." With that, I walked away, and Lillian's scream soon reached my ears. A bit of physical pain is letting Lillian off far too easy. I want blood for blood, too. The next day in the classroom, Lillian stood beside me, her face bruised and swollen, and demanded, "Talia, you're supposed to be the class monitor, and everyone trusts you. Why didn't you help me when you saw I was being bullied? This Lillian was a far cry from the timid, submissive girl she was around Kylon. I'd always known Lillian was a bully who preyed on the kind-hearted. She'd turn on anyone who showed her kindness. Hearing Lillian's voice, I didn't even look up, just kept working on my problems and said flatly, if Kylon only bullies you and not others, you must have crossed him. I can't help you. They were the same words Lillian had said to me in my past life. I wanted to see how she would feel hearing them thrown back at her. To my surprise, Lillian grabbed all my books and threw them on the floor, her eyes red as she shouted at me, "You hypocrite, you always play the nice guy in class, but it turns out you're just a selfish, petty little man." The loud noise made all the classmates turn their heads. Lillian, as if she'd finally found an outlet for the bullying she'd endured from Kylon, unleashed all her pent-up frustration on me. Oh. So that's how I was supposed to treat her in my past life. It's a shame you only feel the pain when the needle pricks your own skin. I let out a cold laugh and was about to fire back at Lillian when I spotted Kylon sauntering toward the classroom. So, I cleared my throat and deliberately raised my voice for everyone to hear. Aren't you secretly crushing on Kylon? You know what they say, teasing is a sign of affection. You seem to be enjoying it just fine. The moment those words left my mouth, Lillian froze on the spot. Her expression went rigid, as if she couldn't believe I had discovered her secret. Truth be told, I actually had no idea Lillian had a thing for Kylon. She hid her feelings far too well. I only found out after she died. I'm genuinely curious about what's going on in Lillian's head. To have a crush on the very person who bullied her, that's seriously messed up. Kylon has always known he's a catch, with plenty of admirers, but the thought of the girl he despises most secretly pining for him, that would be absolutely intolerable to him. In their past life, if Lillian hadn't held so many of Kylon's secrets, he would never have agreed to be with her. Now that Kylon knows how Lillian feels, he must be utterly disgusted. What a revolting thought. 3. You, how did you know? Lillian was completely flustered and accidentally blurted out what was on her mind. She had no idea Kylon had returned to the classroom until she noticed the strange looks from all her classmates. Only then did she turn her head to see Kylon standing right behind her, his gaze fixed on her with a chilling intensity. Lillian instinctively tipped 2 steps back, bumping into a desk. Losing her balance, she fell straight to the floor. Kylon, no, that's not how it is. Don't listen to Talia's nonsense. Of course. Kylon wasn't a fool. He knew exactly what was true and what wasn't. Kylon spat in Lillian's face, his brow furrowed tightly. You think scum like you is worthy of liking me? Take a good look at yourself in the mirror. Then, right in front of all their classmates, Kylon began to beat and kick Lillian. I wasn't the least bit surprised by this outcome. In fact, I'd like to ask Lillian, how does it feel to be beaten by the person you love most? It wasn't until the class bell rang that Kylon finally stopped. Lillian lay on the ground, barely conscious, with no one daring to step forward to help. Now I finally understand why, in my past life, so many people witnessed Kylon openly bullying Lillian yet offered no help. Everyone knew her true nature, and they all feared the power of the Xia family. I was the only naive one, foolishly believing that good would always triumph over evil. It was my innocence, my lack of real-world experience. I simply didn't understand the power of capital. Now, I watch with a cold eye. The path of vengeance has only just begun. When the homeroom teacher entered, Lillian was still lying on the floor. Seeing this, the teacher acted as if she noticed nothing and simply told everyone to take out their books. I was the first to raise my hand and said, "Teacher, I'd like to change seats." The homeroom teacher paused and looked at me with suspicion. That's right, Lillian and I had always been desk mates. Back then, I felt sorry for her because no one dared to sit with her. As the class monitor, with a foolish sense of kindness, I was the first to pull her to sit next to me when she was left alone after the seating arrangement. In the days that followed, I would patiently explain problems to Lillian. Although our relationship wasn't as close as it was in the previous life when I saved her, I pitied her. I've always been someone who keeps relationships at a distance, maintaining only a nodding acquaintance with most people. Lillian was bullied because not only was her family background poor, but she also always dressed in rags. While there were many students from impoverished families, Lillian always had this lifeless, miserable air about her that made others want to stay away. As for Kylon bullying Lillian, it was simply because she kept deliberately inserting herself into his space. Kylon was a young master born with a silver spoon in his mouth. So naturally, he looked down on people like her, honestly. That one reason alone shouldn't have been enough for Kylon to bully Lillian. Once, when Kylon was playing basketball, Lillian brought him a cola. Shockingly, she had put her used menstrual pad inside it. Lillian had heard from someone, she wasn't sure who, that if the person you loved drank your period blood, they would become utterly devoted to you. Unfortunately, someone witnessed Lillian's act. Seeing Kylon take a sip, that person rushed out to reveal the truth. That day, Kylon was violently sick. vomiting until the world went dark. From then on, Kylon bullied Lillian relentlessly and without mercy. I had no idea what was happening at the time. After all, my only job at school was to study. This is what I heard Lillian muttering to herself after I died in my previous life. She said, "The master was right. Now that Kylon has drunk my period blood, he's mine." Just thinking about that scene now makes me sick to my stomach, let alone what Kylon must have felt going through it. With someone that shameless, who else would you bully? But in my past life, I was in the dark. I just thought Kylon was throwing her weight around, and to think, I actually helped Lillian go up against Kylon. It was only after I died that I found out Lillian had been bad-mouthing me to Kylon all along. For the homeroom teacher's voice pulled me back from my memories as she asked, why the sudden request to change seats? I'll be blunt. Lillian smells so bad. It's distracting. I can't focus on the lesson at all. As the class monitor and the perennial top student in my grade, I know there are two types of people teachers favor the most. The first type is someone like Kylon, with his family background. Even though his grades are poor, his family can casually donate a building to the school. That makes him the golden child. Then there's someone like me, a good student who helps boost the school's college acceptance rate. The homeroom teacher shot a veiled glance at Lillian, who in turn stared back at me with utter disbelief. The entire class erupted in uproarious laughter, buzzing with hushed whispers. It's true that Lillian had a smell. She never bathed, so after P.E., she reeked of sweat. On top of that, Kylon and his cronies would dump filthy water and worse on her. Wherever Lillian went, a foul odor followed. In my past life, to avoid hurting Lillian's feelings, I gently suggested she take a bath. Worried she might not have money on her water card, I even lent her mine. To my surprise, Lillian looked at me with teary-eyed indignation and asked, "I thought you were my only real friend, but you're just like the others," looking down on me. I must have been blind to trust you. At the time, I thought my wording must have been too harsh and wounded her pride. It took me ages to finally calm her down afterwards. Now I understand. Lillian is a bully who only picks on the weak. When others openly mocked her, she didn't dare talk back. I just happened to be the convenient target, giving her a perfect excuse to vent. I always went out of my way to protect Lillian's pride, so of course her face fell when I exposed her flaws in front of everyone today. The homeroom teacher frowned. How could she not know whether I was telling the truth? So, in the end, she agreed to my request. I picked up my desk and sat right next to Kylon, causing another wave of shock among the onlookers. Who in their right mind would dare sit next to Kylon here? Once, when a teacher assigned someone to be Kylon's deskmate, Kylon kicked both the person and their desk flying in one swift motion. Kylon was sleeping at the time. Sensing the disturbance, he lifted his head with clear annoyance. A collective gasp swept through the room. And even Lillian was waiting to see the drama unfold. When Kylon realized it was me, he slumped back down, turning his head away. But I saw it. The tips of his ears were already flushed red. It wasn't until after I died that I learned Kylon had a crush on me back then. It's just that I was always siding with Lillian against him. And on top of that, Lillian kept whispering to Kylon, smearing my name, claiming I was involved with a bunch of guys. Kylon couldn't stomach it. Which is why he came down on me so hard. Looking back, the signs of Kylon's crush were all there. For instance, before the bullying started, during cleanup duty, whenever I was carrying something heavy, Kylon would always walk up from behind and casually take it from my hands. Or another time, when I couldn't reach the top of the blackboard while cleaning it, Kylon suddenly showed up. He called me useless, but his actions spoke louder. He wiped the board clean for me. It's just that my emotional awareness has always been a bit slow, and coupled with my later relationship with Lillian, that's why I harbored such deep resentment towards Kylon, and it's the same now. Of course, I hate Kylon even more than I did in my past life. No way, seriously, you don't actually think that the lives of me and my parents are less important than his bullshit romance, do you? A debt of blood must be paid in blood. 5. Everyone was astonished to see that Kylon showed no reaction. Lillian had already returned to her seat. I saw her clenching her fists so tightly she was about to snap the pen in her hand. A smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth as I gritted my teeth in silence. Getting close to Kylon filled me with utter disgust, but for the sake of my revenge, I had to endure it. After class, Lillian stormed over to my desk. "What's your problem, Talia? Humiliating me in front of everyone like that. Do you think just because we're from poor families? We don't deserve any respect?" I sneered inwardly. It seems Lillian is still clinging to the days when I treated her well. Others might deserve it, but you don't. I enunciated each word deliberately, and Lillian's face gradually turned ashen. She seemed taken aback by my bluntness, left speechless with anger for a long moment. I can't believe I misjudged you. You're just like them, always looking at people through a biased lens." Lillian's voice must have been too loud. Because it woke Kylon up. He suddenly sat up, his face dark and stormy as he glared at her. You got a death wish, still haven't learned to shut your mouth. Was my last beating not enough for you? Kylon's voice was utterly terrifying. Whatever Lillian was about to say died in her throat. Her body trembled uncontrollably. She shot me one last resentful glance before slinking away in defeat. I flashed Kylon what I thought was a charming smile. Thank you. Kylon paused, a flicker of admiration in his eyes, and stammered, It's nothing. I didn't do it for you. She was just being too loud. I kept my smile. Well, thank you too. Maybe my gaze was too sincere, or maybe Kylon's heart was racing too fast, but he quickly lowered his head. If she bothers you again, just let me know. If I had to guess, Lillian was definitely looking our way by now. I deliberately reached out and plucked the fallen leaf from Kylon's hair. He jumped as if shocked, looking at me in confusion. What are you doing? How innocent. If it weren't for the grudge from my past life, I'd probably fall for a guy like Kylon. The sound Kylon made drew everyone's attention. They all seemed a bit fearful, their gazes a mix of schadenfreude, pity, and concern for me. I picked up the fallen leaf and gave it a little shake. You've got something on your head. Kylon's face flushed crimson. He quickly sat down and went to sleep without another word. I turned around and met Lillian's venomous gaze head-on. I must have turned too quickly, as she hadn't had time to look away. I shot Lillian a challenging look, watching as she snapped the pen in her own hand clean in two. This is just the beginning. I'm going to take everything and everyone Lillian cares about, and then slowly push her into hell. 6. Ever since I started sitting next to Kylon, he seems to sleep less. And he even asks me for help with math problems sometimes. Kylon is actually very smart. He just acts out to spite his father because the man is a womanizer who's given him a whole bunch of younger siblings. No one knows about these things but me. I've been quietly weaving myself into Kylon's life. He's grown increasingly dependent on me, and the look in his eyes has taken on a different, deeper feeling. But I haven't been idle with Lillian either. By my calculations, it's about time for her to show up, right on cue. Lillian stormed in and slammed a piece of paper right in my face. The paper was sharp, cutting my cheek. Something wet trickled down my face. I didn't need to look to know it was blood, but it was enough, just enough to stir a protective instinct in a certain someone. Talia, you bitch. How dare you cancel my financial aid? Don't you know how much I need that money? If I can't afford school, are you going to pay for it? Kylon wasn't around, so of course Lillian chose this moment to confront me. I sized Lillian up. She was sporting the latest fruit phone, and her clothes and shoes were gradually being replaced with designer brands. What money problems? Our school's financial aid is quite generous, around 50,000, so I deliberately let it slip in a conversation with others that Kylon likes girls who are all glammed up. She couldn't wait and took out a loan to buy all that stuff. Probably because she was dead set on getting that scholarship. Then I followed Lillian to the mall, secretly took pictures of her buying all those luxury items, and sent them to our teacher. The teacher was furious and revoked her scholarship on the spot. Looks like Lillian got the notice and didn't dare confront the teacher. That's why she came looking for me. Seriously, when will this girl ever learn? Even though nobody liked Lillian, it was true that her family was struggling. We're all students. A bit of roughhousing is one thing, but deep down, we're decent people. We couldn't just let her drop out of school. After hearing what Lillian said, they started whispering about me. Who would have thought the class monitor, usually such a nice guy, would hold a grudge against Lillian and go after her like that? This time, the class monitor really went too far. Some of them were right. I was absolutely determined to make Lillian's life miserable. I stood up and spoke slowly. Financial aid is for students in need. The clothes you're wearing and the things you're holding are worth more than what any of us ordinary students have, aren't they? This money should go to those who truly need it. Lillian completely ignored my explanation, grabbed my hair, and flew into a rage. You bitch, you're trying to frame me. I'll kill you. My scalp was stinging from being pulled. But this wasn't the right moment for me to retaliate, so I could only put on a pitiful act and explain, you're the one who insisted on buying luxury goods. Where are we, as students, supposed to get that kind of money? If you don't need it, what's wrong with giving it to someone else? With a loud bang, Kylon burst into the classroom from outside. A flying kick sent Lillian sprawling 5 meters away, staring at Kylon in disbelief. Lillian burst into loud, wailing sobs. Kylon, I just wanted you to like me. What did I do wrong? If it weren't for that bitch Talia stabbing me in the back, I could have become someone you'd respect. Kylon completely ignored Lillian, his focus fixed on my injured face. He took out a bandage and carefully applied it for me. You okay? Didn't I tell you to come find me if she ever bothers you again? With Kylon's little hero act just now, anyone with eyes could see he treats me differently. Yet Lillian's still living in a fantasy, if she had half a brain. She'd realized the kind of girl Kylon likes is definitely not a shallow vase who just piles on luxury brands. Besides, Lillian herself was dark-skinned and scrawny, hardly what you'd call good-looking. What on earth made Lillian think that just by wearing designer clothes, Kylon would look at her with newfound respect? Well, now the tables have turned. All of Lillian's clothes are worn to shreds. It looks like she won't be able to pay back her loan, and there's no returning them now. I lowered my head shyly, putting on an innocent air, and asked, Kylon, thank you, why are you so good to me? 7. The tips of Kylon's ears flushed crimson the moment he heard the question, and he turned his face away with a huff. I don't need a reason to dislike someone, and I need even less of a reason to like them. I quickly latched onto Kylon's point, raising my voice in feigned surprise. You like me? The whole class erupted at that, and Lillian could only glare at me. Not daring to say a word, Kylon didn't respond, just buried his head in his arms on the desk, pulling his jacket over it. A cold, imperceptible smirk flickered in the depths of my eyes. Perfect, the fish has taken the bait. Soon, word that Kylon liked me spread like wildfire, and the whole school knew. Now, whenever I go out, people jokingly call me sister-in-law. Hearing it, I blush with a mix of embarrassment and shyness and always run away, but deep down, I was already sickened, naturally. Lillian was deeply upset to hear this news, but right now, she was in over her head, completely unable to repay the loan she owed. I gave the creditors her address, and they came knocking, with no collateral. The only loans she could get were high-interest ones from loan sharks who used violent collection tactics. The teacher couldn't handle it either, so they had no choice but to call Lillian's parents. Lillian's parents were already old and could only afford her education by working as street sweepers. When this whole mess happened, her father was so enraged he suffered a stroke, was hospitalized, and passed away in less than 2 weeks. As for Lillian's mother, the shock and anger caused her to have a stroke as well, leaving her paralyzed and bedridden. I feel absolutely no sympathy for Lillian's parents. My parents were innocent too, in their past life. They were only trying to seek justice and clear my name, and for that, Lillian schemed to have them killed. I can't possibly let Lillian off the hook just because I think her parents were innocent. Besides, were her parents really that innocent? After the incident blew up, Lillian had no choice but to take a temporary leave from school. I had plenty of time during this period to build a connection with Kylon. Kylon was very clingy. I knew it was because he'd been starved of affection for years. So I was extra attentive and caring, putting on an act like I couldn't live without him. The campus forum was flooded with photos and stories about Kylon and me. For a time, we became the campus's model couple. By the time we graduated from university, Kylon was completely and utterly mine. During our class reunion that evening at the karaoke bar, I caught sight of a familiar figure. She recognized us almost immediately and quickly turned her back. How could I possibly let Lillian slip away? So I feigned surprise and called out, Lillian, what a coincidence. We're having a class reunion. Care to join us? Hearing my voice, everyone turned to look at Lillian. She was dressed provocatively, with heavy makeup. What she was doing there was painfully obvious. Well, if it isn't Lillian, look at you, all grown up and pretty. How about I pay you double to come have some fun with us? 8. Lillian was deep in debt to loan sharks. And with her mother bedridden, she was desperate for money. For a young girl, this was the fastest way to get it. Of course, I chose this place for the party on purpose. How else was I going to get a front row seat to the show? Lillian hid her face behind her hair, repeating over and over, "You've got the wrong person." At that moment, the madam began to berate Lillian furiously. Lillian, get in that room now. What are you waiting for? A handout, you cheap, money-grubbing little thing. Don't you dare play the innocent with me now. Even without seeing Lillian's face, I could tell her expression must be grim. It was clear from the conversation that Lillian was no longer just a hostess for drinks. From what the madam implied, she had started taking clients out, but even that felt like letting her off too easy. In my book, in the end, driven by the need to meet her quota, Lillian had no choice but to accompany us inside. We sang the songs she picked, and she poured the drinks while we drank. A few classmates who looked like they'd been in a car crash even started groping her. Lillian didn't dare resist, afraid of having her pay docked. Watching her get bullied like that, I only felt a sense of grim satisfaction. Occasionally, when Lillian glanced my way, I didn't avert my gaze. I met the malice and hatred in her eyes head-on. After all, in her eyes, I am the one who caused her tragic fate. So what? I did it on purpose. I'm a wicked spirit. Why should I do any good deeds? Kylon stayed by my side, treating me with the utmost tenderness. He fed me fruit, draped a jacket over my shoulders, and wouldn't let me drink, his eyes filled with nothing but gentleness. This only made Lillian despise me all the more. I excused myself to go to the restroom, but I had already slipped my spare phone under Kylon's seat. The call silently connected, just as I expected, the moment I left. Lillian immediately took a seat next to Kylon. I have to hand it to her. After the way Kylon treated her so horribly back then, she still had the guts to get close to him. Kylon, take me instead. Let me be with you from now on. Okay, I really can't take it anymore. What's so great about Talia? She's just a common tramp who's been passed around. I always used to see her checking into hotels with other men. I'm telling you the truth. Kylon, you have to believe me. Lillian really is a leopard that can't change its spots. In my past life, she spread those same filthy rumors about me to Kylon, which made him hold a grudge against me. Perhaps Lillian knew all along that Kylon liked me, but why would Kylon, in this lifetime, ever trust Lillian so easily? Every night, I would video call Kylon until I fell asleep, without missing a single day. He thought I couldn't live without him, just as I thought. A cold sneer came from Kylon over the phone. I had no idea what Kylon was doing, only hearing his sinister voice cut through. Lillian, it's been years since I taught you a lesson. Have you forgotten what it feels like to be beaten? This was followed by the sound of a shattering bottle, then the screams of the crowd, and the piercing screech of microphone feedback. The sound is perfect. I'm very pleased. I should be heading back now. 9. The moment I stepped into the private room, I saw Lillian on her knees, her face covered in blood. Clutching desperately at the hem of Kylon's trousers. I'm sorry, Kylon, I was wrong. I shouldn't have slandered Talia. Seeing me enter, Lillian crawled to my feet and began kowtowing frantically. I'm sorry, Talia. It was my fault. I was despicable. I'll never dare to do it again. Please, I beg you, ask Kylon to spare me. I looked down at Lillian from my height. She was reaping what she had sown. But this wasn't enough. She hasn't even begun to taste the bitter fruit of my past life. I turned my gaze to Kylon. This trash is such an eyesore. Sharing the same air with her makes me sick. Lillian's face instantly drained of color. She stared at me in disbelief, her nails digging into her own flesh. Kylon is completely under my thumb now, practically at my beck and call. If Lillian could manipulate him in the past life, then it's only natural I can do the same in this one. Hearing this, Kylon immediately grabbed Lillian by the hair and started dragging her out. Lillian began screaming hysterically, but it was no use. Around here, everyone knows Kylon. His reputation as a ruthless troublemaker precedes him. Suddenly, Lillian's expression changed. Her cries abruptly ceased for a moment, and then the look in her eyes as she stared at me became different. Talia, aren't you supposed to be dead? Impossible. Impossible. I'm Mrs. Sienna. Who dares to touch me? I smiled. Well. Lillian has also come back. Just a little too late. No. Or rather, it's perfect. Now this is my true, sworn enemy. Kylon, I'm your wife. Let me go. Don't you hate that bitch Talia? Hurry up and release me. Let's kill Talia. She doesn't truly love you. She's just using you. It seems Lillian quickly sorted out her memories from both her past and present life. She's clever, I'll give her that. But would Kylon ever trust someone who's nothing but a liar, just as expected? Kylon acted as if he hadn't heard a thing, dragging Lillian up to the rooftop. The other students didn't dare follow. When Kylon loses it, he's truly terrifying. If he got upset, they'd all be dragged into it. I followed behind Lillian with a smile, listening to her stream of curses directed at me. Soon, Kylon threw Lillian onto the rooftop. I walked over slowly, placed my foot on her neck, and said with a laugh, "It's fine. If the police come, I'll tell them you confessed to Kylon, got rejected. And in your despair, you jumped." Lillian grew even more terrified, her lips trembling. You came back too, just as I thought. The corner of my mouth lifted as I spoke in a voice meant only for the two of us. A little earlier than you. A shame you were a step behind. How does it feel, watching the one you love choose me, and enduring every bit of the suffering I once endured? Lillian roared. Talia, you bitch, I'm going to kill you. As she said this, Lillian charged at me. But Kylon kicked her down the stairs, in the moment before she fell. Her face turned deathly pale, and she screamed, Talia, I was wrong. I'm begging you. Please save me. I leaned over the railing upstairs and gave a contemptuous smile. You brought this on yourself by crossing Kylon. With a sickening crash, Lillian plummeted from the 28th floor and was instantly reduced to a pulp. Kylon stared at me, dumbstruck. After all, I looked completely unhinged at that moment. Talia, what did Lillian mean by all that? 10. Before I could even compose myself, Kylon's expression began to shift strangely. His demeanor was uncannily similar to Lillian's just moments before. It was the exact same look he had when he killed me in my past life. I couldn't help but shudder. Did I do something to wrong you in the past? I've always felt that all the love you showed me was a lie, yet I cherished every moment of it. I even thought, if only you could keep deceiving me forever, killing Lillian. That was your ultimate goal, wasn't it? Kylon's tone suddenly softened. the corners of his eyes reddening as if burdened by some deep regret. A cold laugh echoed in my heart. No, my ultimate goal isn't Lillian, but the entire Sia family. I smiled gently and ruffled Kylon's hair, just like I used to. Silly, how could I? Lillian got what she deserved. I've always loved you. Kylon seemed to be appeased, his usual gentleness returning as he pulled me into a tight embrace. I'm so afraid you don't love me. Talia, please don't leave me. Okay, fighting back my disgust. I patted Kylon's back gently and whispered, okay. In the days that followed, I started working and became increasingly busy. Kylon could never seem to reach me, growing anxious and irritable. I had almost forgotten that his true nature, from the very beginning, was that of a cold-blooded killer. I managed to get in touch with Kylon's brother, Sean. He's the son from the wife Kylon's father married back in the countryside before he made his fortune, after Mr. Sia struck it rich. He met Kylon's mother, and the two of them conspired to have Sean's mother killed. Sean despises his father, and he hates Kylon even more. If my soul hadn't wandered the world for so long in my past life, I would never have uncovered all these secrets. I gave Sean the video of Kylon personally killing Lillian. I knew he had more ways to deal with the Sia family than I did, and I was happy to leave it to him. When I saw the news about the Sia family's tax evasion, their many shady dealings, and Kylon being imprisoned for murder, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Sean truly has his methods. He either doesn't make a move, or he makes sure the Sia family is utterly destroyed. After getting Kylon's call, I went to the prison. In just a short week, Kylon had become gone beyond recognition, his head shaved, which gave him a somewhat pitiful look. Talia, you're the one behind all this, aren't you? Kylon stared at me intently through the glass. A faint smile touched my lips. There was no point in keeping up the pretense now, not with Kylon sentenced to death. I'm not that capable. You should thank your half-brother for that. I merely gave things a helpful nudge. Kylon lowered his gaze. After a long silence, he finally spoke. I had a dream. In it, I bullied you, pushed you off a building to your death, and married Lillian. It was a terrifying dream, yet it felt so real, considering what Lillian said to you before she died. It's as if you saw it all coming. Look at her expression in her final moments. There's no trace of fear, only the grim satisfaction of vengeance fulfilled. My gut tells me that wasn't a dream, but something that really happened. Talia, tell me the truth. Did I do something to wrong you in the past? I never imagined that memories from a past life could surface in Kylon's dreams. A faint smile touched my lips. Yes, it all truly happened. The harm you did to me, killing me with your own hands, causing the death of my parents, it was all real. So, Kylon, the outcome you face now is exactly what you deserve. I expected Kylon to lose his mind, to rage and roar. Instead, he just smiled, a look of quiet acceptance on his face. It's a relief that in this life, at least, you are still alive and well. That is truly a good thing. My heart skipped a beat, and I offered no reply. Talia, you never loved me, did you? Kylon asked in a low voice. After a moment of silence, I looked up. That's right, every time I'm near you, it makes me sick. Someone like you doesn't deserve anyone's love. You and Lillian are the same. You both deserve to rot. Kylon laughed, as if he had expected this all along. Yeah, someone like me. I don't deserve it. As the guard led him away, Kylon looked back at me, his eyes full of longing, his lips moving silently. Talia, you have to live a good life. If there's a next life, I promise I'll love you right. I shook my head, as if telling him, or perhaps telling myself, I don't want a next life with you. Let's never meet again. Story 2. After my father-in-law suffered a stroke and became paralyzed, my husband handed over his entire paycheck to my mother-in-law, Serena. Mom is taking care of Dad all by herself. The financial strain is just too much. As a daughter-in-law yourself, I'm sure you can understand what Mom is going through. Of course I understand. How could I not? I handed my salary card over to my mother-in-law without a second thought. Mom, here's mine too. We're family. We should share both the good times and the hard times. All about going the extra mile in filial piety. Need to pay for the kids' classes. Ask Grandma. Husband wants new clothes. Ask Mom for money, out of rice and oil. Go mooch a meal off the in-laws, utility and property fees. Have the mother-in-law foot the bill. After all, I handed my paycheck over to her. She should cover the expenses. In my past life, you all thought I wasn't filial enough. This time, I'll be the epitome of filial piety. Let's see who can outlast whom. I woke up with a pounding heart. Before me was the familiar off-white ceiling. With a faint crack in the upper right corner, I'm in my own home. I bolted upright in bed, tears streamed down uncontrollably, but I was supposed to be dead. My last memory from the previous life was in a hospital bed, with terminal liver cancer. The doctors gave me a month at most. Levi stood by the bedside, his eyes red and swollen, yet he didn't dare ask his mother for money to cover my treatment. My mother-in-law sat in the corner of the hospital room, sighing as she said, "We truly have no money left at home." It wasn't until I drew my last breath That I learned the truth from my brother-in-law's wife. 1. My mother-in-law has over 6 million sitting in her bank account. She's planning to buy a villa for my brother-in-law. Yet I was told the family has no money and passed away prematurely without receiving my final chemotherapy treatment. What's even more absurd is that after I died, my son Noah was sent to a public kindergarten because with mom gone, money's tighter at home. While my brother-in-law's son still enjoys top-tier education at an elite private kindergarten, to think I've been reborn into this life, I rolled over and grabbed my phone. The date on the screen made my heart race. Today was the day Levi handed his paycheck over to his mother. In my past life, I could only weep silently before nodding in agreement. That was the beginning of my nightmare. The bedroom door was gently pushed open. Levi walked in with a grave expression. I know that expression all too well. On this very day in my past life, he wore that exact same look, hesitating to speak. He finally mustered the courage to make the request that would change my destiny. Serena, I need to talk to you about something. The familiar opening lines echoed in my ears. It felt as if time had reversed. A sudden chill crept up my spine. Painful memories from a past life flooded back like a tidal wave. I suppressed the turmoil of emotions within me, feigning ignorance. I asked, "What's the matter?" Levi sat on the edge of the bed, his body heat seeped through the quilt. I instinctively shrank back. How I used to cherish that warmth. Now it only makes me feel suffocated. Serena, he held my hand, his voice low and somber. You know Dad's condition. It requires long-term treatment. Mom is taking care of him alone, and the financial strain is overwhelming. I watched him hesitate to speak. A cold smirk forming in my heart. Levi was just like this in my past life. Using filial piety as an excuse, he slowly drained me of everything I had. "Do you want to give your paycheck to your mom?" I asked calmly. Not a trace of emotion could be heard in my voice. Levi looked at me in surprise. A flicker of unease passed through his eyes. I forced a smile. "Just a guess. Taking care of your uncle must be exhausting, and it can't be easy for your mother-in-law to handle it all alone." I watched the tension on Levi's face gradually give way to relief. A wave of irony washed over me. In my past life, it was precisely this kind of empathy that led to my downfall. It ended in tragedy for me. "I agree," I said softly. Levi breathed a sigh of relief, eyes glistening with gratitude. "You're so kind. I knew you'd understand. And that's not all." I took my salary card out of the bedside drawer, handed it to him and said, "Let's have Mom manage my salary card too." Levi was clearly taken aback by my action. His eyes widened, his mouth slightly agape. Is that really necessary? We still have a mortgage to pay." I caught a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. My inner smirk grew even more pronounced. In our past life, the moment Levi took my salary card from me, his eyes held that same hesitation. But it wasn't out of concern for me. It was worry over who would cover the household expenses. "Honey," I said with a sincerity that surprised even myself, "Dad's health is what matters most. Let Mom handle the finances. It'll give us peace of mind. I'll figure out a way to cover the household expenses." Levi was so moved that his eyes welled up with tears. "Serena, thank you. In my past life, after I handed over my paycheck to my mother-in-law, the entire burden of the household has fallen on my shoulders. Mortgage, car payments, daily expenses, even the children's education costs are solely my responsibility. Yet most of Levi's paycheck ends up in his younger brother's pocket. If you're going to be filial, go all the way with it. Let everyone see. This is what true ultimate filial piety looks like." After Levi left for work, I picked up my phone and called the moving company. "Hello, I need a few workers. Please move all the appliances to another address this morning." After hanging up, I looked around the room. My gaze fell upon the 65-inch smart TV in the living room. That was something Levi and I scrimped and saved to buy. We wanted to create a cozy space to unwind after long days of hard work. In my previous life, this TV stayed with me for a full 5 years. Couldn't bear to replace it until it broke down completely. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law's family upgrades to the latest model every 2 years. The movers arrived right on schedule. Four burly men stood at the doorway looking puzzled. I smiled and opened the door, inviting them in. "Ma'am, are you sure you want to move all the appliances?" the lead worker asked with a furrowed brow. I nodded, my smile unwavering. "Yes, all of it, but these all look brand new." I let out a soft sigh, feigning melancholy. "These are for my in-laws. My father-in-law had a stroke and is paralyzed, and my mother-in-law is struggling to care for him alone. Good appliances will make things easier for her." The workers exchanged glances. "You're such a wonderful daughter-in-law." I sneered inwardly, yet maintained a gentle smile. "It's only right. Families should always help one another." The moving process has begun. I deliberately chose 10 a.m. at this hour. The housewives in the neighborhood always gather in the small garden downstairs to chat. Sure enough, when the workers carried the 65-inch TV out the door, it immediately drew curious looks. "Serena, are you moving out?" Aunt Doris from downstairs poked her head out and asked. She's the neighborhood's well-known informant. Nothing escapes her notice. I stood at the stairwell entrance and deliberately raised my voice. "We're not moving. We're giving the appliances to my in-laws. My father-in-law is ill, and my mother-in-law has been working so hard caring for him. Good appliances will make their daily life a little more comfortable. How did you know?" Aunt Doris's jaw dropped in surprise. "You're giving away such a nice TV too." I nodded, a gentle smile on my face. My father-in-law loves watching TV, but now that he's bedridden from illness, a bigger screen would really help him see better. About 7 or 8 neighbors had gathered around, all looking at me with admiration. "Look at that. Such a wonderful daughter-in-law. Levi's family is truly blessed. You don't see many young people like that these days, so thoughtful and considerate." I'll continue with my performance. "Not just the TV, but the refrigerator, washing machine, air conditioner, microwave. We sent them all over. My husband's and my salary cards are also handed over to my mother-in-law for unified management." "What? You even gave your salary cards to your mother-in-law?" Everyone was even more astonished. I lowered my head with feigned shyness. "It's only right. Father-in-law's medical bills are quite expensive, and as his children, we ought to do our part." The neighbors all gave me a thumbs up, praising me as the model daughter-in-law. Seeing their admiring expressions only deepened the cold smirk in my heart. In my past life, I was once praised like this too, when I silently shouldered the family burdens and tirelessly cared for my gravely ill father-in-law. All the neighbors called me virtuous and sensible, but in the end, when I fell seriously ill and was bedridden, my mother-in-law wouldn't even cover the 50,000 yuan surgery fee, claiming family finances were tight. Less than a month after I died, my brother-in-law drove his brand-new luxury car and took the whole family on a trip to Europe. The workers gradually moved all the household appliances onto the truck. I made sure to give each worker an extra tip. "You've all worked hard. When you get to the destination, please make some noise so the neighbors know this is my gift to my in-laws." The workers agreed with a smile. They probably thought I was trying to help my in-laws save face in front of the neighbors. I followed the truck to the neighborhood where my in-laws live. It's an old neighborhood, but the location is great, right in the city center. My in-laws live on the 3rd floor of a 6-story building with no elevator, which is one of the reasons why daily life became challenging for my father-in-law after his stroke. As the workers started carrying the appliances upstairs, the neighbors from my in-laws' residential complex gathered around. Drawn by the commotion, I stood downstairs, smiling as I explained to everyone that these appliances were gifts for my parents-in-law. "Oh my, your daughter-in-law is so devoted and thoughtful, Mrs. Mabel. Your son has found himself a wonderful wife. You don't see many young people like this anymore, so thoughtful and well-mannered." As the chorus of praise swelled, I saw my mother-in-law appear at the 3rd-floor window, her face full of astonishment. "Serena, what's going on here?" She pointed at the appliances being carried in one by the workers, her voice tinged with confusion. I flashed my brightest smile. "Mom, these appliances are for you and Dad. You've already had your hands full taking care of him. Good appliances can make life a little easier." My mother-in-law's brow furrowed even more deeply. This is too extravagant, isn't it? You're still young. You should be using these things yourselves." "Not extravagant at all." I waved my hand dismissively, deliberately raising my voice so the neighbors in the hallway could hear. "We've already given you our salary cards. Of course the appliances are yours, too. Besides, Levi and I are young. We can manage with less. You and Dad are older. You deserve to have the best." The neighbors all praised my filial devotion, and under everyone's watchful eyes, my mother-in-law had no choice but to reluctantly accept the gesture, but I could see the hesitation and unease in her eyes. In her past life, she never felt the slightest guilt about taking advantage of us. On the contrary, she took it for granted that our money, her son and daughter-in-law's, was hers to use. After the workers brought in the last appliance, I clapped my hands. "All right, everything's in place now." I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures. "I'll share these in the family group chat so everyone can see." The family group chat instantly exploded. "Levi, brother-in-law, bro, sis, what are you guys doing? Sister-in-law, so generous. Father-in-law, Serena, this is too extravagant." I replied, "It's nothing. We're family. No need for formalities. Mom, since we've already given you mine and my husband's salary cards, it's only right that you get the best appliances. We young folks can make do with less." My mother-in-law stood amidst the pile of brand new appliances, looking dazed, as if unsure how to react. "Serena, Mom, don't stand on ceremony. It's the least I could do." I glanced at my watch in feigned surprise. He gripped my hand tightly. "Oh my, it's already noon and I haven't even started preparing lunch." My mother-in-law said hurriedly, "Then hurry back and make some food. Don't go hungry." Go back. Back where? There's not a single appliance left at home. I can't even cook. I paused, putting on an innocent expression. Mom, can I stay here for lunch? The expression on my mother-in-law's face instantly froze. It was already 3 p.m. when Levi rushed home in a frantic hurry. He pushed the door open and stood in the middle of the empty living room, completely stunned. The TV console that once held a 65-inch television stood completely bare. The refrigerator in the kitchen has vanished. And the microwave is gone too. Even the air conditioner in the bedroom was removed, leaving only a few holes in the wall. The entire house is left with only basic furniture and a few simple everyday items. In this lifetime, I won't repeat the same mistakes. Serena, did you really take all the appliances? His voice was filled with disbelief. I had just returned from my in-laws' place and was leisurely flipping through a magazine on the sofa. Hearing his question, I didn't even look up. Yes. I gave it all to Mom and Dad, but how are we supposed to live? He looked around blankly, as if he were in an unfamiliar space. I closed the magazine and looked at him calmly. We'll just go to Mom and Dad's place. We gave them all our money anyway. It's not like we can afford to buy anything new. Levi's expression shifted repeatedly before he finally lost his composure. What exactly are you trying to do? I stood up and walked over to him, wearing an innocent expression. I just want to be a good daughter-in-law. Didn't you say we should be filial? I'm simply taking it a step further than you. I can sense the shock and confusion in Levi's heart. In our past life, after I silently bore all the burdens, he never once questioned his own decisions. He took it for granted that I should support his filial devotion. Serena, this isn't filial piety. This is extremism. Levi finally found the right adjective. Too extreme. I'm just following your logic to its natural conclusion. You said to give your mom your paycheck, so I gave her the appliances too. You said to support our parents unconditionally, so I shifted all the burdens onto them. What's wrong with that? Levi was at a loss for words. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. Serena, I just wanted to help out at home. I never meant to push all the burden onto them. So you're saying we give them our money? But we're still stuck with the burden. What kind of logic is that? We had no choice but to eat out tonight. When we got home, there was no TV, no air conditioning, not even hot water. Too, on sweltering summer nights, we had no choice but to keep the windows open. Enduring the stifling heat and mosquito bites, Levi tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. Serena, at least let me bring the air conditioner back. The weather's getting hotter by the day. No. That would be so disrespectful to our elders. Levi finally couldn't hold back any longer. You did this on purpose, didn't you? You're punishing me for giving my paycheck to my mom. I didn't answer directly, but said softly, let's have breakfast at your parents' place tomorrow. Levi looked at me in surprise. What? I retorted with a smile. We gave all our money and appliances to your parents, and we can't even get a free meal. Levi was left speechless. Early the next morning, I dragged a still groggy Levi to my in-laws' house. The knocking persisted for quite a while before Grandma finally answered the door. She was in her pajamas, her hair slightly disheveled, clearly not expecting visitors so early. Seeing it was us, she froze for a moment. Serena, Levi, what brings you here so early? I replied with a smile. Mom, we don't have any working appliances at home, can't even make breakfast. Had to come mooch a meal off you. My mother-in-law's expression instantly shifted to something complicated. Well, this is a bit awkward. I haven't even started making breakfast yet. I feigned surprise. How could it be inconvenient? We've given you our salary cards and household appliances. Can't we even share a meal? My mother-in-law was left speechless by this remark. She forced an awkward smile and finally let us in. Grandpa was already up, sitting in his wheelchair and watching the big TV we gave him. He seemed a bit surprised to see us. Serena, Levi, you're here so early. I walked over warmly and pushed his wheelchair toward the dining room. Dad, we're here to mooch breakfast. There's nothing left at home. We even gave you our last pot for making congee. Father-in-law's face showed a complex mix of emotions. He seemed to want to say something, but swallowed his words. Breakfast was a simple meal of hastily prepared rice, porridge, and pickled vegetables. I savored every bite and made sure to compliment her. Mom, your cooking is amazing, way better than anything I could make. My mother-in-law forced a faint smile. Oh, it's nothing, just something I threw together. I'll carry on with my performance. How about this? We'll come over for meals every day from now on. Your cooking is so delicious. Both Levi and I are craving it. No sooner had the words been spoken than Levi choked on his porridge and started coughing violently. The old woman's expression grew even more grim. Come every day? That doesn't seem quite right, does it? I tilted my head, looking completely innocent. Why not? We've given you all our money. Shouldn't you be the one taking care of us? The old woman was left speechless and could only force a weak smile. Well, if you'd like to come over, just come ahead. After breakfast, I showed no intention of leaving. Instead, I proactively helped with household chores at my in-laws' place, washing dishes, Mopping the floor, giving my father-in-law a massage. I did everything diligently, but with everything I do, I can't help but exclaim out loud, "Mom, look how filial I am. I gave you my entire paycheck, and I'm even helping with the housework. Dad, we bought this TV, pretty comfortable to watch, right? Honey, see how forward-thinking I was giving your mom my salary card. Now we get to freeload meals and a place to stay." Mother-in-law's face grew increasingly sour, but with both father-in-law and Levi present, she couldn't exactly make a scene. When lunchtime rolled around, it was only natural for me to stay and eat. After the meal, I glanced at my watch and said pointedly, "Gosh, it's sweltering out. Mom, would it be alright if I took a shower? Our water heater's on the fritz." My mother-in-law was practically grinding her teeth. I spent the whole day lingering at my in-laws' place without any intention of leaving, watching TV, scrolling through my phone, helping with chores, chatting with my father-in-law. It felt like this was actually my home. That evening, Levi tried to pull me aside to go home, but I just looked at him, completely baffled. What's the point of going back? There's nothing at home anyway, might as well stay here. Levi looked at me helplessly, his eyes pleading, "Serena, don't be like this." I pretended not to understand his gaze and said to my mother-in-law with a smile, "Mom, can we stay here tonight? You do have a spare room, after all." Her mother-in-law's expression shifted from awkward to reluctant, and now to clearly displeased, but under the gaze of her father-in-law and Levi, she still nodded, "Suit yourselves." And so, we settled in at my in-laws' place. For 3 days straight, we lived off my in-laws like this. We ate, showered, watched TV, and even brought our laundry over for them to wash every day. I found new ways to help my mother-in-law with the chores, but I never missed a chance to remind everyone just how filial I was. "Mom, look how diligent I am. I gave you my salary card, and I do your laundry and cook for you every day. Dad, this massager is from our place. Feels good, doesn't it? Honey, I think we should sell our house and move in with Mom and Dad. We've already given them the money anyway. Mom, we're here to see you and Dad." Lance, my brother-in-law, was clearly taken aback to see me bustling about in the kitchen. "Sis, what are you doing here?" I stepped out of the kitchen with a smile, wiping my hands dry. "Hello, Lance. Hello, sis-in-law. We're here to visit Mom and Dad." Linda frowned. "Do you live here?" Her eyes swept across the living room and landed on that familiar 65-inch TV. "Isn't this your family's television?" I nodded with an innocent look on my face. "Yes. We gave all our appliances to our parents. The house is completely empty now, so we have to stay here." Lance and Linda exchanged a puzzled glance. Linda couldn't help but ask, "Why are we giving away all the appliances?" I feigned surprise. "It's about filial duty. We've already handed our salary cards over to Mom, so naturally the appliances are hers too." "You gave her your salary cards too?" Linda's voice shot up an octave. "Of course. Dad's sick and needs money. We should definitely do our part." Oscar ran over at that moment and grabbed my hand. "Aunt Serena, I want to watch cartoons." I chuckled and ruffled his hair. "Sure, the TV's in the living room. Go ahead and watch it yourself." Oscar cheered and dashed toward the living room. Linda, however, frowned. "Serena, did you really give all your money to Mom? What about the mortgage?" I shrugged. "No idea. We've handed over all our money. So Mom's the one handling these things now." Just then, my mother-in-law came out of the kitchen and cut our conversation short. All right. No need to stand. Everyone, have a seat. Serena, go make some tea." I obediently agreed and turned to head to the kitchen, but I could feel Linda's suspicious gaze on my back. When I returned with the tea, I found my brother-in-law's family already seated on the sofa, with Oscar engrossed in watching cartoons. I set the tea on the coffee table and asked with a smile, "Auntie, how's work been lately?" Linda forced a smile. "It's all right, just busy. Being busy is a good thing. It means your work matters." I paused, then added deliberately, "Not like me. My paycheck goes straight to the family anyway, so whether I work or not doesn't really matter." Linda's expression grew even more peculiar. Lance cleared his throat, trying to change the subject. "Mom, how's Dad feeling today?" The mother-in-law sighed. "Same as always, still confined to the wheelchair. The doctor says he needs rehabilitation therapy, but the cost is just too high." I chimed in right away. "Mom, don't worry about the cost. We've given you both mine and Levi's salaries. It's more than enough for Dad's rehabilitation." My mother-in-law smiled awkwardly. "Yes, it's so good to have you both." Just then, Oscar suddenly called out, "Mom, I'm hungry." Linda glanced at her watch. "It's already 3 o'clock. We really should grab a bite to eat." She turned to her mother-in-law. "Mom, is there anything to eat at home?" Her mother-in-law stood up. "There's some fruit in the fridge. I'll get it. I got there first." "Mom, please stay seated. I'll get it." I walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator, the double-door model we had given them. It was packed with all sorts of food, fresh fruit, milk, yogurt, snacks, you name it, in my past life. Every time I visited my in-laws, the fridge was always stocked with just simple vegetables and some leftovers. My mother-in-law would always say, "Times are tight, we need to be frugal." But when my brother-in-law and his family came to visit, the fridge would miraculously be filled with all sorts of delicious food. In this life, the situation remains exactly the same. I brought out a plate of cut fruit and took out a few boxes of premium pastries. I saw all of these in my in-laws' fridge yesterday. My mother-in-law claimed they were gifts from the neighbors. Carrying the food back to the living room, I placed the pastries in front of Oscar. "Oscar, try this. It's really delicious." Oscar's eyes lit up, and he immediately reached for it. Linda stared at the box of pastries in surprise. "Isn't this from that viral bakery in the east side? These cost over 100 yuan per box." I feigned surprise. "Wow, this is so expensive, Mom. You're really splurging on Oscar with such pricey treats." My mother-in-law looked a bit awkward. This was a gift from a friend." I nodded with an innocent look on my face. "Oh, I see. That works out perfectly. Noah's training course fee is due tomorrow. It's 800 yuan, Mom. When would be a good time for you to send it over? What kind of course costs over 5,000 yuan?" My mother-in-law asked in surprise. I shrugged. "Piano lessons. Ha, Noah's really got a natural talent for it. The teacher says we should nurture it properly. That's so expensive." Grandma frowned. I pretended not to understand. "Mom, you don't think it's too expensive, do you? Oscar is already enrolled in 3 tutoring programs, and the monthly tuition adds up to nearly 10,000 yuan. Linda's expression changed, and she shot me a sharp glare. My mother-in-law quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "Of course it's not too expensive. Noah is my own grandson, and his education is absolutely important." "That's good," I said with a smile. "I was worried you might think it's too expensive. After all, we've given all our money to you, so naturally you'll be covering the children's education expenses." I cut her off. The atmosphere in the room instantly turned awkward. My brother-in-law and his family exchanged uneasy glances, clearly taken aback by my directness. My mother-in-law's face flushed with alternating shades of pale and red, yet she couldn't refuse in front of everyone. This is exactly the effect I was going for. In my previous life, my brother-in-law's son Oscar attended the best kindergarten in the city, with tuition costing nearly 10,000 yuan per month. Meanwhile, my son Noah was sent to an ordinary kindergarten due to financial constraints at home, and couldn't even afford the most basic extracurricular classes. Oh, by the way. I suddenly remembered something and turned to my brother-in-law. "I heard you're planning to buy a new car soon." Lance was clearly taken aback. I've been considering it. Actually, what kind of car, and what's your budget?" I looked at them with curiosity. I blinked. Lance seemed a bit uncomfortable. "A BMW 3 Series, probably around 300,000 yuan or so. Not bad at all." Being able to afford such an expensive car, looks like my brother-in-law's career is really taking off. Lance forced a smile. "Not bad, I guess." I pressed further. "Paying in full or taking out a loan?" "Well," Lance glanced at his mother-in-law and hesitated, his words faltering. "Free." I caught that look instantly and smirked inwardly. "Don't tell me Mom helped you with the down payment?" I asked pointedly. The room fell silent in an instant. My mother-in-law hurriedly tried to explain. "Serena, don't overthink it. Lance's work isn't going well. He needs a nice car to meet with clients. I understand." I cut in, still smiling. "It's only natural for a mother to dote on her youngest son. I'm just curious, was the down payment you helped him with from Levi's and my salaries?" The words exploded like a bomb in the living room. Lance's face instantly flushed crimson, while Linda looked utterly stunned. Even Oscar, who had been watching TV, noticed the adult's strange behavior and turned around in confusion. The elderly woman's lips quivered, but no words came out. I maintained a gentle smile, as if we'd just been discussing the weather. "Mom, it's really fine. We've given you the money, so how you spend it is entirely up to you. I just wanted to double-check since it involves our family finances." The visit from my brother-in-law's family became the tipping point. After they left, my mother-in-law immediately called me into the bedroom, with a stern expression. "Serena, what on earth are you trying to do?" I put on an innocent face. "Mom, I don't understand what you mean." My mother-in-law lowered her voice, a flash of anger in her eyes. "You moved all your appliances here, stay here every day, and even say those things in front of Lance." I kept my smile and said, "Mom, which part of what I said was wrong? Levi and I did hand over our salary cards to you. Noah does need to pay for the training course. My brother-in-law is indeed planning to buy a new car. These are all facts. What did I do wrong?" My mother-in-law was left speechless by my response. After a long pause, she finally managed to say, "You know what I mean. You're deliberately trying to embarrass me." I let out a soft sigh, my expression sincere. "Mom, you've misunderstood. I'm just doing what's expected of a daughter-in-law, showing respect and care for my in-laws. We'll give you all our money, hand over our appliances, and come keep you company every day. Isn't this exactly what you wanted?" A flicker of unease crossed their eyes. When did I ever say I wanted you to move in every day? You never mentioned that. I nodded. But taking our salary cards means you're responsible for our living expenses. Isn't that right? We have no money for groceries, utilities, or even basic appliances to cook and do laundry. If we don't come to you, where else can we go? My mother-in-law took a deep breath. She seemed to be struggling to keep her emotions in check. Serena, this can't go on. I nodded. I feel the same way. The room was so quiet you could hear each other breathing. Well, I suppose I should return your payroll card to you. My mother-in-law finally managed to utter those words with great difficulty. I feigned surprise and said, Mom, are you saying we're not being filial enough? No. My mother-in-law hurriedly explained, you're still young and have your own lives to live. You shouldn't hand over all your money for me to manage. So what you're saying is... I tilted my head, deep in thought. We can get our salary cards back, but we'd still need to give you a fixed monthly allowance. Is that it? My mother-in-law nodded with relief. Yes, that's better for everyone. I tilted my head and thought for a moment. What about the appliances? I chuckled. Take those back too, she added almost eagerly. You're still young and deserve a comfortable living situation. I shook my head with a serious expression. No, the appliances have already been gifted. It wouldn't be right to ask for them back. That would be disrespectful to our elders. There was a brief pause. I looked my mother-in-law straight in the eye. Besides, we bought all these appliances with our hard-earned money. Since you're planning to give our money to your younger brother for his car, consider these appliances our gift to you both. Her face instantly turned deathly pale. Then it flushed crimson. Finally, she forced a weak smile and said, Serena, You've heard about Lance. Mom, I'm not an idiot. My brother-in-law has never held a steady job, and last month he even asked Levi for money. I cut him off, and now he can afford a BMW this month. Who else but you would give him that much money? My mother-in-law's jaw dropped, at a loss for words. After a long pause, she sighed. Lance is my youngest son, and my heart aches for him. I understand. I nodded. My tone unusually gentle. Every mother has the right to have a favorite. My voice suddenly turned resolute. The money you favor for your youngest son shouldn't be what Levi and I worked so hard to earn. My mother-in-law remained silent for a long time. The air in the room seemed to freeze. Finally, she whispered, I'll return the salary card to you tomorrow, but could you move back to your own place? I pretended to ponder for a moment. That could be arranged, but you'll have to agree to a few conditions. What conditions? My mother-in-law's voice trembled with tension. I shook my head. First, Noah's education fund must match Oscar's from now on. Second, when the family faces difficulties, you must be fair. You can't just help your younger son and ignore us. I looked my mother-in-law straight in the eye and said, word by word, you must personally admit to Levi that you used our money to buy a car for your younger son. My mother-in-law's face instantly darkened. The third condition is unacceptable. Levi is such a devoted son. If he finds out, what would he do? I retorted, get angry, accuse you of favoritism, suspect you might pull something like this again in the future. She was left speechless. I stood up, straightened my clothes and walked toward the door. Mom, please think it over. Give me your answer tomorrow. What is it? Walked out of the room. I took a deep breath in the living room. I used to swallow my pride, believing time would tell. But in the end, time only proved one thing. My mother-in-law's favoritism would never change. My forbearance only invites further exploitation. The moment Levi stepped through the door after work, he could feel the tension in the air. At the dinner table, his mother-in-law remained tight-lipped. His father-in-law just kept his head down and shoveled rice, lacking his usual warmth. After finishing the meal, Levi pulled me aside to the balcony. Serena, what's going on? I shrugged. Nothing much. Just had a chat with Mom about our living arrangements. What arrangements? Mom said she'll give our salary cards back and let us move into our own place. Levi visibly breathed a sigh of relief. That's great. I've also been feeling it's not very convenient staying at our parents' place these past few days, but there's a condition. I cut him off. Mom has to tell you what she did with our money. Levi frowned. What do you mean? The tone was calm yet full of strength. Go ask her yourself. Ask her why she suddenly wants to give the salary card back to us. Is it a guilty conscience? Or is she afraid I'll keep exposing her favoritism in front of my brother-in-law? Levi's expression grew increasingly serious. He fell silent for a moment, his fists slowly clenched, then gradually relaxed. Finally, he nodded and said, I'll get to the bottom of this. He turned and walked toward his grandmother's room. He knocked on the door. I sat on the living room sofa, quietly awaiting the impending storm. In less than 10 minutes, Levi emerged. His face was ashen, eyes brimming with fury and disappointment. Serena, let's go home. His voice was barely a whisper. Yet every word seemed forced through clenched teeth. Rosen followed him. The next day, my mother-in-law returned our salary card to us. "Just give me $6,000 a month," she said with a forced smile. "You handle the finances yourselves. Saves me the trouble of worrying about it." I took the card. I asked deliberately, "Mom, you don't think we're unfilial, do you?" My mother-in-law forced a smile and said, "Of course not. You've been very filial." Levi stood by with his head down. Couldn't bring myself to look my mother in the eye. Last night's conversation clearly hit him hard. The first thing after getting my salary card back, I checked the account statement. Over the past 2 months, we've given over 50,000 yuan to Mom, yet according to hospital records, Dad's medical expenses only came to about 16,000. Where did the rest of the money go? The bank transfer records make it crystal clear. A total of 28,000 yuan was transferred to Lance's account. Note, vehicle down payment. Handed the phone to Levi. "Look, this is your mom's so-called financial hardship." After reading it, Levi's face turned even grimmer. "I can't believe this." "Believe it," I said calmly. "This is only what we know about. Who knows how much more money has been quietly funneled to your brother." Levi fell silent. After a long pause, he finally said, "I'm going to ask Mom for an explanation." "Don't go." I stopped him. "What good would it do even if you ask? She'll just say Lance is struggling and needs help. They'll say it's the last time, and it won't happen again. They'll say blood is thicker than water, and helping the youngest son is only natural. Then you'll soften your heart, forgive her, and think I'm making a big deal out of nothing. It's an endless cycle, over and over again." Levi looked at me. His eyes were filled with shock. "Serena, you seem like a completely different person." I smiled bitterly. "Yes, I've changed. Because I've finally realized that kindness and forbearance don't earn you respect or fairness. Only by making them pay a price will they learn to value what you give." Levi fell silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded and said, "You're right. From now on, I'll be more resolute in protecting our family." Non-committal. That afternoon, I went to the bank. I opened a new account and linked my payroll card to it. Then, I went to the real estate agency. Inquired about the process of selling the house. On my way home, I got a call from my brother-in-law. "Sis, do you have a moment to talk?" He sounded a bit off. I let out a cold laugh. "Get to the point. It's about buying a car." He stammered hesitantly. "I'd like to explain." "No need to explain." I cut him off. "You used our money to buy a car without a shred of guilt. I'm just curious, if I were sick and needed money, would you be just as willing to sell the car to save me?" "Thought so?" I said with a light laugh. "So, don't bother explaining. We both know the truth. Sis, what you're doing, this will harm the family's harmony." I said coldly, "Family harmony? When you took our hard-earned money to buy that luxury car, did you even think about how it would affect our family? But Mom gave that to me." "Of course, yeah, with mine and your brother's money." I cut him off without hesitation. "Lance, remember this conversation. If I ever need money to save my life and you refuse to help, you'll regret it for the rest of your days." With that, I hung up the phone. After Levi returned, I was packing my clothes. "What are you doing, Serena?" he asked in surprise. Without looking up, I said, "Moving out." "What? Why?" I stopped what I was doing. I looked him straight in the eye. "Levi, I want a divorce." I stood frozen in place. "A divorce? Why? I thought we'd settled this. I got the salary card back, and I know the truth now." "Is that all?" I sneered. "You think getting your paycheck back solves everything? Your mother used our savings to buy your brother a car. This isn't just about money. It's a clash of values. In her eyes, your brother will always matter more than us, and you'll always make excuses for her actions. I don't want to waste my life in a family like this." Levi argued urgently. "Serena, that's not how it is. I've made it clear to Mom, and she promised nothing like this would happen again." "Promised?" I scoffed. "Just like she promised the family was struggling and needed our money to get by. For, Levi, we've been married for 5 years, and your mother's favoritism has never changed. She always uses our money to support your brother's family, and you always choose to forgive her. To believe her next lie. I'm tired. I don't want to play a supporting role in this farce anymore." Levi was kneeling before me, tears streaming down his face. "Serena, please give me another chance. I promise I'll change. I'll protect our home." My heart had already turned to stone. "It's too late. Once trust is broken, it can never be mended. I've prepared the divorce papers. Let me know if you'd like to make any changes." I handed him a document. It stated that I waive my right to any claim on the property. "I'm only taking what's mine, my personal belongings and savings." Levi stared at the agreement in disbelief. "That's it. You don't want the house, no compensation." I nodded calmly. "Yes, I just want a clean break from all this." "But why?" I gave a bitter smile. "Because I don't want to have any more ties with your family. Since you bought the house, you should keep it." Levi looked at the agreement. Suddenly he asked, "What about Noah?" This was the most painful decision for me, I said. He stays with you. Levi was so shocked he nearly jumped to his feet. Are you really giving up on your own son? I fought back tears. It's not that I don't want him. It's that I can't keep him. I'm about to leave this city with no stable place to live or source of income. But you have your parents' support and can provide him with a better life. At least he still has a whole family. Levi couldn't understand my decision. Serena. What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this all of a sudden? I wanted to tell him about my past life. Tell him I've already died once and seen through the true nature of this family, but I know he won't believe it, so I simply said, because I've finally realized that some wounds, once inflicted, can never be healed. I don't want to wait until my final moments, only to realize I've wasted my entire life trying to please people who would never truly care about me. Levi stared at me, dumbfounded, as if seeing me for the first time. Just give me some time, he finally said. Let me prove that I can change. There's no need. The mistakes of the past have already been made, and I don't want to relive future tragedies. I'll move out tomorrow. Let me know when you've made up your mind, and I'll come sign the papers. I was just about to move out when my mother-in-law showed up. She stood at the doorway with a conflicted expression and said, Serena, we need to talk. I invited her in and poured her a glass of water. I nodded. The mother-in-law glanced around the room, seeing the packed suitcase. A look of understanding dawned on her face. Levi told me, you're getting a divorce. I nodded. Yes. Why? Just because I gave the money to Lance? Mother-in-law asked bluntly. I chuckled. Not entirely, but it was the last straw. In your heart, your younger son will always matter more than us. The money Levi and I worked our fingers to the bone for just ended up funding your son's luxury car, yet my child is deprived of proper educational resources because the family is struggling financially. Such family dynamics mean absolutely nothing to me. My mother-in-law sighed. Serena, I admit I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken your money to help Lance. But is this really grounds for divorce? We could start over. Suddenly laughed. Mom, you know what? Right before I decided to get divorced, I had a dream. I dreamed that I became seriously ill and needed surgery. You said the family had no money left and couldn't support me. In the end, I died alone in a hospital bed, and yet after my death, you pulled out over $6 million to buy a villa for your younger brother. My mother-in-law's face suddenly changed. What nonsense are you talking? I looked her straight in the eyes. I'm not making this up. The dream felt so real, so vivid I could actually feel the agony of dying. That's why I decided to change my fate before tragedy strikes. The old woman fell silent for a long time. His expression kept shifting between gloom and clarity. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. Serena, how did you know about Lance wanting to buy a villa? My heart skipped a beat. What? The mother-in-law instinctively covered her mouth, clearly realizing she had let the cat out of the bag. So it wasn't a dream. My brother-in-law really wants to buy a villa, and you're actually setting aside money for him, the mother-in-law frantically explained. It's not what you think. Lance did have his eye on a house, but I never agreed to help him. Oh really? I asked sarcastically, just like how you didn't agree to help him buy a car. My mother-in-law was left speechless. I pressed further. Where did this money come from? Is it mine and Levi's hard-earned money? My mother-in-law fell silent. I nodded. That silence spoke volumes. A chill ran down my spine. It all felt too familiar, like a script from a past life playing out again. Mom, please go, I said wearily. There's nothing left for us to talk about. But my mother-in-law refused to leave. Serena, please don't get a divorce. For Noah's sake. I cut her off. Don't use the child as an excuse. Do you actually care about Noah? Or are you just using him to keep me tied down? Of course I care about him. He's my own grandson, I sneered. Oh really? Then why are his clothes always worse than his cousin's? Why is it that when he gets sick, you tell him to just drink more water, but when his cousin catches a cold, you rush him to the best hospital? Why do you say it's too expensive when he wants to join a hobby class, but his cousin gets to attend the best children's program in the city? My mother-in-law was at a loss for words. After a long pause, she defended herself. That was a different situation. Yes, it certainly is a different situation, I said sarcastically, because Noah's parents gave all their money to you, and you used it to spoil your other grandson. My mother-in-law was left speechless by what I said. Her face turned pale, then flushed with anger. I answered the door. It was Noah's kindergarten teacher, Miss Serena. Hello, I'm Noah's homeroom teacher. This is the tuition notice for next semester, totaling 500 yuan. I took the notice. Said with a smile, thank you, teacher, but you'll need to give this to his grandmother. I pointed to the elderly woman inside the room. She's the one who manages all our household finances. The teacher looked somewhat surprised, but they still came in and explained the tuition situation to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law glanced at me awkwardly, finally had to relent. All right, I'll take care of it, after seeing the teacher out. Mother-in-law's expression darkened further. Serena. You're deliberately trying to embarrass me. I'm just telling the truth. Aren't you the one managing our finances? Naturally, you should be the one paying for the child's tuition. The mother-in-law took a deep breath. All right, I admit I was wrong. I'll treat Noah better from now on and be fair to everyone. But please don't get a divorce, okay? It's too late. Some wounds, once inflicted, can never be healed. I've finally seen this family for what it really is. I won't stay and humiliate myself any longer. My mother-in-law's expression suddenly darkened. Serena, don't push your luck. If you insist on getting a divorce, don't blame me for what happens next, I sneered. And what exactly do you plan to do? Noah is a grandson of the Levi family. If you get a divorce, don't even think about taking him with you, my mother-in-law threatened. I looked at her calmly and said, I never intended to take him with me in the first place. My mother-in-law was stunned. What? I'm giving up custody, I said, looking her straight in the eye. It's not that I don't love our child, but I don't want him to get caught in the crossfire of our conflicts, rather than letting him grow up in the shadow of your favoritism. It's better for me to leave and give him a fresh start. My mother-in-law stared at me in disbelief. You're really sure about this? I nodded. I'm sure. My mother-in-law fell silent for a long while. Finally, she sighed and said, Serena, you've changed. Yes, I have changed, I replied with a faint smile, because I've finally realized that some people will never truly care for you, no matter how much you give. In that case, why keep putting yourself through this? My mother-in-law looked at me. A flicker of complex emotions passed through her eyes. After a long pause, she finally said, If you really go through with the divorce, don't come back. I nodded. Don't worry, I won't. I'll leave this city and go somewhere you'll never find me, start my life over again. The old woman fell silent, picked up the bag and headed for the door. At the doorway, she glanced back at me. Serena, I hope you won't regret this. The only thing I regret is not making this decision sooner. The divorce proceedings went more smoothly than I had expected. After struggling with the decision for a week, Levi finally signed the agreement. We met at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. He looked much more haggard, with dark circles under his eyes and an unshaven face. Serena, can you really not reconsider? He pleaded one last time. I shook my head. The decision has been made, Levi. It's for the best for both of us. But what about Noah? He's only 4 years old and needs his mother. I fought back tears. I'll visit him regularly, but you should take custody. He has a father, a grandmother, a grandfather. Living with his father in a complete family is better for him than being with a single mother. Levi closed his eyes in anguish. I just don't understand how things ended up like this. Then I simply turned and walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. I moved into a small apartment. And so began my new life. After the divorce, I regularly visit Noah, but I never step foot into Levi's family's home. We always meet at a park or playground. Levi drops off the child and quietly leaves. Mom, when are you coming home? He asked innocently. I didn't know how to respond. How do you explain the concept of divorce to a 4-year-old? Mom, can't come home for a while, I said softly. But Mom will come visit you often. Okay. Noah nodded. He seemed to accept that explanation. But then he said something that broke my heart. Mom, Grandma said you don't love us anymore, and that's why you left. Is that true? I stared at my son in disbelief. I was at a loss for words. How could my mother-in-law say such things about me in front of the child? No, sweetheart, that's not it. I held him tight, my voice choked with emotion. Mommy loves you so much, always and forever. Mommy left because of some grown-up problems. It has nothing to do with you. Noah nodded with a look of half-understanding. Will you come back? Yes, sweetheart, I told a little white lie. Once Mom takes care of a few things, I'll come back to see you. After seeing Noah off, I sat alone on the park bench, tears streaming down my face. Leaving my child was the most painful decision I have ever made in my life, but I knew it was a necessary sacrifice. Just as I was lost in my sorrow, a familiar figure approached. It was Levi. After a moment of silence, he spoke. Serena, there's something I need to tell you. I wiped my tears. What is it? I checked Mom's bank account, he said in a low voice. Found a deposit under her name, 3 million. That number felt all too familiar. In her past life, my mother-in-law used this very money to buy a villa for my brother-in-law. Where did she get so much money? I pretended not to know. Levi gave a bitter smile. Most of it came from my father's retirement fund and her pension savings, but a portion of it was money we've been giving her over the years. She kept saying the family was struggling and needed our help, but in reality, she'd been saving it all up to buy a house for Lance. I let out a cold laugh. Not surprising in the least. Levi looked at me. His eyes were filled with regret. You knew all along, didn't you? That's why you divorced me without hesitation. I didn't answer directly, just shot back. So what's your plan now? I've laid all my cards on the table with her. Levi's voice was resolute. Tell her she won't see another dime from me. Noah's child support will go directly into a dedicated account, managed by me personally. I nodded. I told her that if she dares to badmouth you in front of Noah again, I'll move out with the kids. I looked at him, somewhat surprised. You've changed, Levi said with a bitter smile. Yeah, I have changed, because I finally understand that with some things, compromise only invites more greed, Serena. I know it might be too late to say this now, but I truly regret. I cut him off. Stop, Levi. What's done is done. We all need a fresh start. Levi fell silent for a moment. Finally, he asked, have you really given up on the idea of getting back together? For Noah's sake, it's not possible. Some wounds, once inflicted, can never be healed, but we can be friends and work together for Noah's healthy development. Levi nodded, his eyes filled with regret and sorrow. I understand. He stood up, took a few steps, then turned back. Serena, I'll protect Noah and keep him safe from any harm. This is the last thing I can do for you. Story 2. The apocalypse has arrived, and zombies are roaming everywhere. Every remaining life on Earth has developed superpowers to combat these zombies. Even our family dog now possesses laser eyes. One glance, and a small zombie goes down. My mom can smash a zombie's head with a frying pan, and here I am, the only college student in the family, staring dumbfounded at the superpower detector, which shows absolute defense when asleep. Just keep sleeping, my mom grunts, barricading the front door and swinging her frying pan. Do you want me to wake you up? I woke up to find our home had been overrun. Zombies were howling outside, leaving countless bloody handprints on the glass door. My mom and our short-legged corgi, Kimmy, stared down the zombies outside, ready for a fight to the death. The scene was tense, thrilling, and brutal. I lay in bed, sleepy-eyed, yawned, and decided to go back to sleep. Who could possibly sleep through this? 3 days ago, the government distributed superpower detectors via drones, calling on all surviving humans to use their powers to resist the zombies. Our dog, Kimmy, has an S-tier superpower. Laser eyes. My mom, with an A+ ability, is a kitchen killer, able to take on hundreds with just kitchenware. Me, with an F ability, can generate a 180 by 200 centimeters protective shield around my sleeping body. It's the exact size of my bed. The shield can actually fit a dozen people easily, but the problem is, how am I supposed to fall asleep surrounded by zombies? Kieran, don't worry. You have to trust your nature to just eat and sleep, my mom said nervously as she glanced at her kitchen tools, trying to reassure me. You're born in the year of the pig, and the fortune teller said it suits your zodiac, so just sleep. Woof, Kimmy barked, sporting a pair of cool dog sunglasses. I always thought I was the brains of the family, but now I've become useless. In the face of superpowers, humans are inferior to dogs, I figured. With enough food at home and my dog and mom to fight off the monsters, my power was redundant. But now that the zombies have broken through the front door and are gathered outside my room, my survival hinges on me. Despite being terrified, I put in my earplugs, donned my eye mask, and drifted into a deep, dark sleep. Believe it or not, I actually fell asleep. After a nap, I woke up feeling groggy. I had no idea what the situation was outside. I must have slept for quite a while, long enough for my mom and Kimmy to have dealt with the zombies, and since my mom hadn't woken me up, I guess there was no need to run. Nervously, I pulled off my eye mask and saw a decaying face inches from mine, a zombie drooling at the head of my bed. I instantly woke up and screamed, "Don't come any closer. Believe it or not, I can fall asleep right here." I huddled at the head of the bed, clutching melatonin, ready to perform a faint-on-the-spot act. "Why are you yelling so loudly?" Hearing my scream, my mom rushed over from the kitchen, still holding a plate of something burnt and unidentifiable. Mom, zombie." I was so scared I could barely speak. "Oh, that's your dad." My mom calmly glanced at the zombie. I thought about it. We were married after all. Couldn't bring myself to do it. Just leave it tied up for now. It was only then that I realized the zombie was tied to the bookshelf, unable to move. Its swollen, pale features vaguely resembled the blurry image of my father in my memory. My parents had divorced long ago, and quite despicably, my father was living with his mistress in the same apartment complex as our house. When the zombie outbreak first erupted, my mom had wanted to bring them to our place, thinking that more people meant more strength. Unexpectedly, the mistress, thinking my mom was after their supplies, dismissed her with a dehydrated apple. It looked like their place had been overrun, although I wanted to say they deserved it. He was still biologically my father. In the apocalypse, everyone was for themselves. In the end, I said nothing. "You are such a coward, even afraid of your dad turned into such a useless zombie." My mom scornfully glared at me and scolded us both. Kimmy, who heard the noise and came over, snorted disdainfully. "Nonsense. I don't have superpowers to fight zombies. Am I not allowed to be scared? Get up and have breakfast. The defenses in this area are broken. We need to move." My mom didn't give me a chance to be scared. I got out of bed, tears in my eyes, Asleep, I was a treasure; awake, a useless thing, a true tool in every sense. As night fell, I took 3 melatonin tablets and was dragged by my mom to the garage. As for my dad, we left him at home to fend for himself. In my mom's words, he had already died once and couldn't die a second time. As long as his head wasn't blown off, he would be fine. He wouldn't starve to death. It made sense in a way. Almost no zombies were encountered on the way to the garage. And any that were had their heads shot through by Kimmy. Get in the car, go to sleep immediately, and we'll reach the eastern base by the time you wake up, understand? My mom settled me in the back seat, repeatedly making sure I understood. Okay, the melatonin worked quickly, and I soon fell asleep. I dreamed I was a powerful boss, controlling everything with a mere wave of my hand, with a slight lift of my hand. I wiped out all the zombies in a city. Everyone looked at me with admiration. My mom and Kimmy were very envious of me, cursing their own useless powers. I chuckled lightly, looking towards the horizon, my tone firm. In this world, there are no bad superpowers. All powers exist to eliminate zombies and protect the future. Tears streamed down their faces as they repeatedly expressed their realization. Kieran the boss, I understand now. Haha. I laughed out loud 3 times, then I woke up. The car was smoothly driving down the highway. The orange sun just rising from the east, its golden light illuminating the walls of the eastern base not far away. My mom and Kimmy, faces showing signs of fatigue, looked at each other with hopeful eyes. Kimmy, hang in there, victory is in sight. Woof. Only then did I notice that the car was splattered with blood. The heavy smell of blood covered the entire car. This journey, you both worked hard. Still remembering the scene from my dream, I mimicked the tone from my dream and solemnly joined in the heated dialogue. You're awake. Go back to sleep. Hearing me, my mom reached back and thumped me on the head. 55-55. The heroism was theirs. I was just meant to lie down. I didn't fall asleep again because we had arrived at the base. Armed soldiers patrolled the entrance of the base, preventing any infected individuals from sneaking in. Next to them was a superpower detector, requiring registration. Wow. S is amazing. This must be in the top 3 on our base. As soon as Kimmy's results came out, people immediately surrounded him. They stared at Kimmy in admiration, respectfully letting him stamp his paw print. They didn't feel there was anything wrong with bowing and scraping to a corgi. Wow, another A+ big shot, said my mom, holding a spatula, warmly welcomed by everyone. It's nothing, really. It's all thanks to my daughter along the way. My mom said casually, could it be that your daughter is S+? The higher-ups must be thrilled. 3 big shots in one day, surrounded by their expectant gazes. I swallowed nervously. This is it. I'm going to be exposed. Why did my mom have to hype me up so much? What if they look down on me? Anxiously, I placed my hand on the skill detector. Silence. An awkward silence. Miss, please come and register, said the registrar. Still with a stiff smile, I went to register, overhearing whispers behind me. When I was brought inside the base, I couldn't help but ask my mom, why did you say it was all thanks to me? You saw their disappointed faces. Didn't you notice? Here, abilities rank everyone. If I didn't emphasize your role, how would you handle being bullied later? My mom spoke indifferently. A mix of injustice and resentment surged in my heart. Why are my abilities so useless? No, if it weren't for your defense, Kimmy and I would have been zombie food halfway here. My mom comforted me, patting my head. As long as you can sleep, you are the strongest fortress and bastion in the world. Who knows, maybe in the end, you'll be the only sleeping beauty left alive. Kimmy also came over and nuzzled my leg with his head. Right, my mom is A+, my pet is S-. Abilities are a matter of talent. What does that tell you? It means my talent is to cling to strong legs and lie flat. So what? I have strong legs to cling to. If you don't like it, deal with it. 05. Thanks to my mom and Kimmy, our family got a 2-bedroom apartment. The door plate reads Rebecca and Kimmy's home. Rebecca is my mom. I don't have a name, but I have a bed. Although the bed was originally Kimmy's, Kimmy sleeps at the foot of the bed without any complaints. My mom and Kimmy joined the hunting team, going out daily to gather supplies and rescue survivors. They returned home every day, exhausted and covered in blood. I could only stay at home. I knew that if it weren't for them, I would be assigned to a dormitory, doing menial tasks like moving bricks or working on a sewing machine. My mom couldn't bear it, and the higher-ups turned a blind eye because of their abilities. I hated my useless ability. I couldn't do anything but prepare meals and give massages when they returned. One day when I went out to collect supplies, I heard people talking about me. Is that the F-? Yeah, lucky her. Her mom is A+, and even her dog is S-. They all come from the same family. How can she be worse than a dog? Who knows? She does nothing all day, just like waste. Don't we have a policy against supporting the useless? Can we report this? I gripped the supplies in my hand tightly. I knew my mom took on the most dangerous jobs for me. Everything we had was borne by my mom and Kimmy for me. We weren't taking advantage of the base, but they were still unsatisfied. Their words stung like needles in my heart. The laid-back attitude I once had, thanks to having strong support, was now completely gone. I too wished for a powerful ability to help bear the burdens with my mom, but I was powerless to do anything. Before the end of the world, we were all just ordinary people. After gaining special abilities, everyone was ranked in different classes. Those of us unfortunate enough to possess useless abilities were treated as though we were abandoned by the world, relegated to the lowest tier of society. I couldn't stand the thought of my mother, after bravely facing dangers outside, coming home only to be pointed at and ridiculed. Maybe it would be better if I just stuck to sewing. I planned to discuss this with my mom when she returned. Unexpectedly, she didn't come back. The second in command at the base held Kimmy and told me with a sorrowful expression, "Ms. Rebecca is missing," according to him. My mom had seen a set of kitchenware in the supermarket, originally priced at $30,000. And couldn't resist going in after she had safely escorted the survivors to the vehicle. They waited at the entrance until dusk, but my mom never appeared. As more and more zombies gathered, they had no choice but to return to the base. My heart tightened. Oh, my mom and her eye for kitchenware, QAQ. It seemed like they were already preparing to hold a memorial service for her, but deep down, I had a feeling that she was still alive. She had promised to come back tonight and cook her special dish. Stir-fried tomatoes. Knowing Ms. Rebecca, having just gotten her hands on such expensive kitchenware, there was no way she'd simply end up in a pile of zombies. A middle-aged woman of her age has a keen sense of danger. After seeing off the second in command, Kimmy and I exchanged a look, seeing the determination in each other's eyes. We would either find her alive or confirm her death among the zombies. After a quick preparation, I ran to the infirmary to ask the nurse for a large bottle of strong sleeping pills. The infirmary was full of injured people. However, these injuries were not caused by zombies, but by fellow humans. After all, those bitten by zombies either ended up as rot in their stomachs or turned into zombies themselves. The news of my mom's disappearance had spread throughout the base, and I hadn't realized until now how much influence she actually had. People with missing limbs looked at me with sorrow. Of course, there were also those who took joy in our misfortune. Now the higher-ups can't protect her anymore. This useless person will finally be kicked out. See, that's what happens when you cling to the powerful. Oh, so is this the fate of those without anyone powerful to cling to? I retorted, picking up Kimmy and giving them a threatening look. I don't understand why they are so senseless. See this corgi with its perky backside in my arms. One of the top 3 ability holders at the base. And I believe that my mom is definitely still alive and well. If it comes to it, I'll let her bite me, and we can go find our zombie scum dad together. A family should be together, complete and united. It's easy to leave the eastern base, but hard to get back in. The guard looked at me as if I were a corpse who didn't know its own limits, but his expression turned serious when he saw Kimmy in my arms, approaching with his gun drawn. "You can't take it out of the base." "Why not?" I clutched Kimmy closer. "This is a valuable asset to our base. If it gets hurt protecting you, a useless person, you couldn't compensate us even if there were 10 of you." He scoffed disdainfully. How ridiculous it is, in this apocalyptic world, that my worth is considered less than that of my dog. Kimmy seemed to understand and hooked its paw around my clothes, barking at the guard. "See, Kimmy wants to go out too," I said, trying to push past with Kimmy in my arms. "Stop her," the guard shouted, tearing at his throat. Other guards gathered around. They really had no shame, a bunch of grown men, forcefully pinning me to the ground and snatching Kimmy from my arms. They were about to throw me out. A faint blue light burst from Kimmy's eyes. Upon seeing this, the guard was so frightened that he let go of Kimmy, but stubbornly kept me separated from her, even going so far as to cock the pistol and aim it at me. It seemed he would rather kill me than let me take Kimmy away. The atmosphere was thick with tension. "What is going on here?" A deep voice fell from the sky, rescuing me from my predicament. A man covered in blood entered from outside the base. The boss, everyone around immediately saluted. So this was the boss. I had been at the base for quite some time, but this was my first encounter with him. It was said he was the first to possess abilities, and a fearsome SSS plus at that, yet no one knew what his abilities were. He always ventured out alone, leaving only ruins and countless zombie corpses in his wake. I looked up at him and saw a face that was all too familiar. Lawson. I was stunned. This was the idol I had adored before the apocalypse, handsome and touching in his craft. Touching, though hardly outstanding. That's why he was always a minor celebrity, never quite making it to fame. But I didn't care. His face was enough for me to go crazy for him, to smash into walls for him. I had often shown his photo to my mom, declaring, "This man is going to be my future husband." She would scoff dismissively, telling me that I'd meet him when pigs could climb trees. "Mom, do you see? The pigs have climbed the tree. This F-ranked person wants to take the S-ranked dog boss away." The guard who initially stopped me immediately rushed up to complain. "This is my pet. I need to go find my mom. She went missing during a mission." Being exposed for my low ability rank in front of my idol, I felt ashamed of the embarrassing F rank once again. Lawson glanced at me, his expression indifferent as he raised his hand. "Let them go. That easy to talk to, truly worthy of being the idol I admired. Beautiful and kind-hearted, at that moment." My vision was filtered through an 800-meter thick lens, automatically ignoring his subsequent remark. "Once you leave, your life is your own responsibility. He must know that without my mom, life at the base would be unbearable for me. He was so considerate. He even cared about whether I would survive outside. He really spoils his fans." Kimmy jumped onto me, and I held it as I walked out. As I passed by Lawson, I whispered quietly, "Don't worry, baby. I'll be safe," though I spoke softly. He still heard me. He paused for a moment and turned his head, looking at me quizzically. "Do you know me? 3 years a loyal fan, my devotion solid as gold. I've been a fan since your debut in that sanitary pad commercial, which was absolutely stunning." I immediately stopped to prove my fan credentials, wishing I had an internet-connected phone to show him my level 20 superfan status on his fan forum. Even though there were fewer than 100 regulars there, he coughed awkwardly. I immediately stepped forward with concern. "What's wrong, baby? Do you have a cold? Oh, you should wear more clothes. I can cough, but my idol can't." He stepped back, took a pistol from a guard, and threw it to me. "Can you use this?" "No." I clumsily caught the gun. This was a gift from my idol. Rounding up, it could be considered a support gift. "Turn off the safety catch, aim at the zombies' heads and fire," he instructed before turning to leave, watching his fading figure. A faint sadness enveloped my heart. I wondered if I could survive and return to have him sign this gun. If possible, I'd like to hear him recite that sanitary pad slogan again. "I will always be by your side to protect you." Perfectly sealed. "Sleep in peace every night." Kim led the way, dispatching small zombies one after another. The blue laser light illuminated the path as I searched for my mom, according to her teammates. The supermarket wasn't far from the base, if my mom was still alive. She could make it back on her own, but as time passed, everyone assumed she was dead. I refused to believe it. My heart pounded with fear throughout the journey, having been protected by Kim and my mom before. This was my first real encounter with zombies. They looked human, but their faces were numb and ashen, mouths gaping, exuding a foul breath as they tried to claw at us. The streets were littered with exposed bones and decaying bodies. I pulled out the pistol Lawson had given me. Unlocked the safety, but I couldn't bring myself to shoot. Thankfully, Kim was powerful. The unreal lasers shooting from its eyes gave me the illusion of playing a video game. Soon, we reached the supermarket. Mom, Rebecca, holding on to Kim. I searched for my mom. Kim seemed tired, its laser growing weaker. As I ventured into the kitchenware section, I heard a surprising voice overhead. "Kieran, Mom." I looked up sharply and saw my mom hanging like a monkey from a decorative sphere on the ceiling. "What are you doing out here?" She seemed to be in good shape, wielding a pink kitchen knife. "People at the base said you were dead." The moment I saw her, tears uncontrollably streamed down my face. I had been terrified, scared of what would happen if my mom was dead. The zombies on the road were horrifying, and what if I turned into a zombie on my way to find her? Would she still want me? But now that I saw my mom alive, I couldn't afford to be weak or scared. Only now did I feel the right to cry. "Oh, don't cry. Your mom isn't dead. It's just that there are too many zombies below," and I twisted my ankle and couldn't get down. "Have Kim clear the area a bit, and I'll climb down from the side." My mom, with a stern face, nagged and ordered as usual. Though she was scolding, I couldn't help but laugh. It was such a relief to see her alive, but Kim seemed tired, its eyes struggling to emit any light. "Behind you," my mom suddenly shouted from above. Instinctively, I ducked as a zombie lunged at me from behind and missed. "Run." My mom immediately moved towards the side scaffold, trying to climb down, but it was too late. Swarms of zombies rushed out from a nearby warehouse. If I ran, it wasn't certain if I could escape, let alone ensure the survival of my mom and Kim. In a moment of clarity, I used the obstacles for cover and ran to where my mom was about to land, pulling out sleeping pills and swallowing a handful all at once. "Wait a moment." Woof, my mom and Kim immediately tried to stop me, but the pills worked quickly. My eyelids grew heavy and my consciousness thickened. In a daze, I saw a female zombie rushing towards me. The zombie was big, very white. I collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by sleep. When I hazily woke up, I saw a familiar figure standing tall. Even if burnt to ash, I would recognize that silhouette. "Son." I immediately snapped to full alertness and rushed to Lawson. "So, you don't care if your own mother lives or dies?" My mom chimed in with a sarcastic comment from the side. It was only then that I turned around and saw her, with a pink boning knife fastened to her waist and a frying pan in hand. She looked full of vigor. "Did we survive?" I remembered the scene before I fell asleep and incredulously checked my unharmed self. The area was littered with zombie corpses, and the supermarket was a disaster, looking like it had gone through a major catastrophe. With only a few steel bars standing upright amidst the rubble. How long did I sleep? You slept for 10 hours, Lawson said nonchalantly. My mom mentioned that at the critical moment, my protective shield had activated, so I was spared from the zombie's facial attack. Both my mom and Kimmy were within the range of my protective shield. However, zombies crowded around the protective shield, endless in sight. They also didn't dare disturb me, fearing that if I suddenly woke up, I would be overwhelmed by the tide of zombies. As the night passed, a strong wave of supernatural power suddenly emerged, cutting through the supermarket and the zombies, followed by a violent explosion. Fortunately, my protective shield was sturdy enough to withstand the blast. Afterwards, Lawson saw us and waited with them for me to wake up. You really sleep like a log, making your wife wait for you for 3 whole hours. Rebecca teased me as soon as she knew we were safe. Wife, Lawson, who had been sitting and looking into the distance, suddenly turned around. Oh, you don't know how much Kieran adored you before the zombie attack. He even had a life-sized pillow made of you, hugged it to sleep every night, and always called you his wife. Mom, I interrupted quickly, feeling utterly embarrassed. It's like, in fan culture, there's this thing called clay fans. It's like treating idols like little girls with affection. I'm not saying it in a bad way. I just really admire you. You're very manly and handsome. I tried to explain myself in haste, but it only made things worse. So, you mean to say you treat me like a little girl, and even sleep with me? Lawson whispered in my ear without changing his expression. Does that mean you want to sleep with me? What? Can it even be interpreted that way? What kind of nonsense are you thinking? Thanks, but I'm unfanning. I'm just joking. Seeing my shocked expression, Lawson started laughing. His personality is terrible, really awful. I'll expose him in the fan forums later, but he looks so handsome when he laughs. My health bar instantly drained. Mom, he's killing with his looks. Unfan. Even if I, Kieran, jump from the base and turn into a zombie, I won't stop being a fan. Cut out the lovesick look. We're heading back to the base, my mom said, unable to stand it any longer, and kicked me. Kimmy also gave me a look of disdain. Pfft, what do you know? All the way, I fussed over Lawson, not leaving his side. By the way, why were you always acting alone before? Were others bullying you? It must be so. Despite experiencing his terrible personality, I couldn't help but imagine him as a pitiful figure isolated because of his strength. Looking at Lawson, my eyes filled with sympathy. I'm the leader, Lawson said with a face of resignation, his tone carrying an indescribable loneliness. But I can't control my powers, which don't discriminate between friend and foe. Everyone who has seen my powers has died, so I have to wait until the advanced team rescues the survivors before I can act alone. Oh, so that's why. Wait a minute. Does that mean I'm the only person in the world who knows about your powers? Knowing the secret of my idol, so thrilling. Are your mom and Kimmy not people? My mom abruptly raised her hand and gave me a knock on the head, but Kimmy was never human to begin with. I held my head in frustration. Suddenly, Lawson burst into laughter, his expression indescribably relaxed. Not being understood, having no friends, he must be very lonely most of the time. I thought of my own despised and useless skill, when suddenly an idea struck me. Maybe you could team up with me, after all. Though my special ability is rated F-, it's described as absolute defense. Unexpectedly, Lawson declined. I don't have many fans as it is. I don't want to lose even one. That's what he told me. The supermarket was located on the very edge of his ability's shockwave. No one could say for sure if it would have been effective at the center. He frowned deeply as he spoke. How will you know if you don't try? Let's head back. He didn't reply, but escorted us to the base entrance and continued to clear out zombies outside. Watching him walk alone towards the hordes of zombies, my eyes began to sting. If only my abilities were a bit stronger, strong enough so he wouldn't have to be alone. Come on, stop looking. My mother put her arm around my shoulders. Looks like your idol isn't as hopeless as you said. Indeed. I almost forgot that I had been ranting to my mom about how Lawson had no notable accomplishments. See, this man, who sings off-key, dances awkwardly, and acts like he's just reading lines, is my husband. He might not be good at anything, but I still love him. It seems he had misplaced his talents, but his strength made him even more captivating. My mother and I returned triumphantly, shocking everyone at the base. Oh, it was all thanks to my daughter. Zombies were all over her face, and she just fell asleep, activating the defense for me and Kimmy, surrounded by people. My mom couldn't stop bragging about me. All eyes were on me. Come on, show us again how you just fall asleep right there. My mom pushed me forward, just like she used to during family gatherings when I was asked to perform. Mom, I was exasperated. I was just about to explain that it was thanks to Lawson that we were rescued when suddenly someone rushed over. It's bad. The leader has hurt the leader of the western base again. Just a short while after parting with Lawson, trouble had found him. I followed the crowd to the base entrance and saw Lawson with a dark expression, carrying a severely injured woman. She was an extraordinarily glamorous woman, dressed in a mermaid dress and high heels during an apocalypse. Her voluminous curls exuded an air of refinement. I respected her bravery, but the brave woman didn't look good, with a severe wound in her abdomen and a large patch of fresh blood staining her azure dress. The nurses quickly brought a stretcher and took the woman from Lawson's hands. How many times this month? She really must think she's got lives to spare. I suspect this is a plot by the Western base to drain our medical supplies. A murmur of discussions followed. What was that about? I couldn't help but ask around, and that's when I learned that Rose, the leader of the Western base, had been bothering Lawson for more than a day or two. Rose had been wanting to marry Lawson to merge the eastern and western bases, but Lawson had always refused. Rose was a woman of action, trying to take advantage of Lawson's solitude to force a union, but didn't expect to be injured by his indiscriminate attacks. Her ability was to turn her body into steel, and meeting someone who could hurt her only fueled her determination, repeatedly endangering herself whenever Lawson used his abilities, attempting to move Lawson. Well, I have to say, Rose is truly a person of steel, literally. When others talked about Lawson, their faces were filled with fear, and that made me feel slightly uncomfortable. When Lawson swept his gaze through the crowd and spotted me, he nodded slightly in my direction. It was as if he was saying, "See, this is what happens to those who get close to me." Indeed, beautiful men always have their thorns. As Rose was being carried past Lawson on a stretcher, she suddenly reached out and grabbed the hem of Lawson's clothes. She struggled to sit up, and a fresh wave of blood soaked the ground. She seemed not to care at all, tossing her hair back to reveal her delicate features. "I told you, only I can survive by your side. You have only me to choose, Lawson. One day I will have you." I was stunned. What to do when your idol is being flirted with right in front of you, without much thought? I instinctively rushed forward, positioning myself in front of Lawson. "No, there's me too. What kind of demon wants to lay hands on my wife? Can't you see my wife is about to cry?" Lawson's expression darkened, and he pulled me away fiercely. "I know that anger is just your way of protecting yourself. You must be really upset. My poor baby." Rose stopped me. "What do you mean? My ability also allows me to survive by Lawson's side. And you want to monopolize Lawson? Did you get my approval?" Jokingly. Although Lawson wasn't popular before, as for those trying to stir up drama by binding him with others, our fan group has already fought it out in our minds 800 times. "Who are you? Why do I need your approval?" Rose looked me up and down and laughed. "I am Lawson's fan." Before I could finish speaking, Lawson covered my mouth. "Rose, if you're okay, go back to your base." His expression was cold, and his tone breathed no refusal. Rose raised an eyebrow, glared at me, and obediently lay back down on the stretcher to be carried away by the nurses. From the moment Lawson covered my mouth, my mind went blank. I hope I didn't drool. Did I? I don't have bad breath, right? Seeing him wipe his hand over his mouth just now, does that count as an indirect kiss? Stop messing around, and don't expose my identity. He seemed somewhat helpless. I hastily nodded, showing compliance. He let go of me and walked away again. I could still smell his scent lingering on my nose. In the midst of the zombies' rotting stench and the smell of blood, his scent was like a cold, refreshing spring. My mom caught up with me and slapped me on the back. "What are you thinking? You think you can mess with the leader of the Western base?" I stood there stunned, watching his departing figure, and said to my mom, "Mom, I want to follow him." "Go ahead, take Kimmy with you." My mom looked calm, even giving me a push. "Aren't you afraid I'll die?" Hearing my mom's response, I paused for a moment. Is this really my mother? I know you've always wanted to prove yourself. You've been suffocated staying in the base, haven't you? Plus, you've liked him for a long time. My mom gestured in the direction Lawson had left. Others may not believe it, but how could I not know? Your ability is actually quite powerful. Kimmy and I are both aware of that, and Kimmy can help clear the zombies on your path. As long as you don't sabotage yourself, there won't be any problems. Tears welled up in my eyes. When nobody else believed in me, my mother continued to support me as always. I didn't want to be a drag anymore, a useless burden. I was determined to prove that I, too, had my merits. I grabbed Kimmy, who was beside me, and sped off, chasing the figure that was almost out of sight. There weren't actually many zombies ahead. Lawson had pretty much taken care of them. The few scattered ones that remained, Kimmy could easily dispatch, all along the way. There were only blazing cars and shattered buildings. Despite the horrific scenes, I felt an inner calm. I knew Lawson was up ahead. I didn't realize how long I had walked until I reached a place ravaged by zombies. Lawson stood in the distance with his eyes closed, preparing to unleash his powers. Seeing his stance, I immediately pulled out the sleeping pills from my pocket. "Humph, just wait until I appear unharmed before you. Then see if you'll still team up with me. Mom won't let you go alone." I seamlessly switched between being a fan of mud sculptures and a die-hard fan of my own mother. Kimmy cuddled quietly in my arms. My consciousness was a bit blurry as I stepped out from behind the car. What would Lawson do when he saw me safe after releasing his powers? Would he think I looked like Sleeping Beauty? I watched his handsome figure without blinking. Who's there? Unexpectedly, Lawson noticed me and withdrew his powers. Oh no. Am I going to get scolded? I thought hazily, suddenly. Kimmy in my arms started to get restless. Through my sleepy eyes, I saw a zombie on the second floor of the building behind Lawson, baring its teeth, ready to pounce. My scattered consciousness snapped back into place. I wanted to shout a warning, but it was too late. The zombie had already pounced. Lawson heard the wind behind him and dodged just in time to avoid the zombie's attack. It was like a signal. And zombies started swarming from all directions. Use your powers, I urged Lawson. Struggling to keep my spirits up. You'll die. Lawson awkwardly dodged the zombies around him, stubbornly shaking his head. I won't. You have to trust me. Kimmy's eyes also emitted a blue light, destroying several zombies that were converging on us. But more zombies were still gathering around Lawson. I pulled out the handgun Lawson had given me earlier from my embrace and fired 2 shots into the sky. The gunshots abruptly rang out, drawing the zombies' attention. The zombies around Lawson turned and pounced towards me. If you don't use your powers, I'll die too. Why not give it a try? I shouted and quickly pulled Kimmy into a nearby car. The light sedan was no match for the surging tide of zombies. It was my first time facing so many zombies. As I had been asleep during previous encounters, unexpectedly, I wasn't scared at all. Through the car window, I saw Lawson look in my direction. Pause for a moment, then slowly raise his hand. That's my mom's good wife. I watched his figure contentedly and slowly fell asleep under the effect of the sleeping pills. When I opened my eyes, I saw a splendid starry sky above me. I was laid on flat ground, covered with a blanket from who knows where. I sat up briskly and saw Lawson beside me, feeding Kimmy. See, I told you I'd be fine. I laughed carelessly. What nonsense that Rose had spoken. Lawson is a radiant and shining person. He shouldn't fight alone. Shouldn't be feared. He should have countless choices. Not be forced into commitments, even if it was me. It was just to prove to him, you are not alone. Because of you, we have this bright future ahead of us. Upon seeing that I was awake, Lawson put down Kimmy and came over. You're not hurt. Before I could finish my sentence, Lawson mimicked my mom and gave me a noogie. Stop messing around. He looked displeased. Much like my mom, now that you've proven you can survive, what's next? He looked down at me from his tall stance, his presence emitting a gloomy air. Next, you can also help rescue the survivors. As long as they are within my defensive range, you don't have to worry about harming them, and we can eliminate the zombies even faster. Holding on to the arguments I had prepared, I smiled at Lawson. I knew Lawson wouldn't refuse. Now that I've proven I can compensate for the shortcomings of his powers, no survivor passionate about eliminating zombies would say no to this. But every time you fall asleep, you become utterly helpless. What if zombies catch you when you're awake, or someone harms you while you're asleep? Lawson hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. In this apocalyptic world, it's hard to predict people's intentions. It's okay. I have Kimmy, my mom, and you. I blinked at him playfully. Buddy, can you pamper your fan a bit? Lawson remained silent, giving me no response. I didn't want to pressure him, so I grabbed Kimmy, who had come close, and played with it. Since gaining its powers, Kimmy had become much smarter, breaking free from my grip on its paw pads and running to sit by Lawson's feet, staring up at him with wide eyes and whimpering. Good job, Kimmy. I quickly followed suit, pulling out my best puppy dog eyes. Fine. In the end, Lawson relented, albeit reluctantly. I looked towards the distant horizon where the sun was slowly rising, breaking through the dense night. There's an old saying, education is for all. It means everyone has the right to learn. In this apocalypse, where abilities determine one's status, I believe that no matter the power, everyone has the right to fiercely defend our homeland. My mom, Kimmy, and Lawson. We became a formidable team that even the zombies feared, if zombies could still feel fear. That is, we rescued large groups of survivors. Nearly every survivor who reached the eastern base immediately teamed up to go out and eliminate zombies. Everyone contributed their strength to protect our shared home. Rose later came several times to question why I could do it. In front of everyone, Lawson calmly spoke. Because you approach me only to expand your own power for your selfish desires. But she's different. She's doing this for the future of humanity, to save more survivors. Everyone's gaze shifted to me following Lawson's words. I coughed lightly. There's no such thing as a bad ability. Every ability is meant to eliminate zombies and protect the future. Yep, nailed it. Of course, there were those who were jealous, always whispering behind my back. Look, that's the F-grade nobody. Wow. She made it into an S-grade team. I think her ability is just clinging to stronger people. I walked over and patted their shoulders. They jumped in surprise. After all, I had 3 of the base's big shots behind me. I smiled at them and clarified, "No, my ability is to coast." Epilogue. After 3 long years of fighting, the last zombie on Earth was eradicated, reconstruction was in full swing, and everyone returned to their positions to shine brightly, but Lawson found himself out of a job. His power, being highly destructive, had been restricted from casual use before the apocalypse. He was just a minor celebrity. He surely couldn't go back to endorsing sanitary pads. After all, as his supernatural abilities became widely known, although people were grateful, they were also a bit afraid of him. Seeing Lawson looking downcast, I came up with a brilliant idea. "How about you become a stay-at-home husband? I used to lie low, now I can support you." After all, I was a top student in the agriculture department of a top 2 university. I'm not worried about finding a job at all. Lawson turned to look at me, and to my surprise, he blushed. I pulled out the ring I had prepared from behind me and knelt on one knee. "Will you marry me?" On our wedding day, almost everyone came to congratulate us. Everyone said that it was because of Lawson and me that they were able to survive. I casually waved my hand, indicating it was nothing. "Actually, I just took a nap at night, holding Lawson," I remarked. "I used to sleep holding a pillow." "I never imagined I'd actually be holding a real person." Lawson chuckled, caressed my cheek, and leaned in closer. In a blur, I suddenly thought of something and asked, "Holy shit, does this count as fan service?" "Damn, if people find out, it'll be a scandal." "No, it's the fan servicing me." He groaned softly, his voice raspy. "And about causing a scandal, I've caused enough trouble before. Maybe it was because I slept too much before." Lawson was already asleep, but I didn't feel the slightest bit tired. The moonlight was bright and serene, casting a peaceful glow in the bedroom. Faint noises from the lingering banquet outside drifted in. "It's wonderful. We're both alive, and the apocalypse has arrived," with the typical zombie kings being handsome young men with 6-pack abs. Yet, my zombie king is a large black dog, a dog that, in a past life, was abused and abandoned, killed all humans, and ultimately was the one to end my life, this time around. I intend to hoard supplies and pamper this zombie dog, vowing to exact revenge together. With 4 days left, I stood in the familiar yard, staring at the goofy black dog wagging its tail at me. Slightly dazed, an image kept replaying in my mind. A zombie dog towering over a person, baring its stark white teeth, its body oozing black blood from rotting flesh, opening its gaping maw towards me. That was the last sight I saw before I died, bitten by the dog I loved, as an orphan. Once I was financially capable, I rented a place in the suburban area of the city and took in over a dozen stray dogs. Among them, a large black mongrel that had been abused and abandoned multiple times was my favorite. I named him Knight. The word Rebirth surfaced in my mind. Trembling, I pulled out my phone and saw it was July 26th, 2 p.m. Suddenly, I was struck with realization. July 26th was the exact day Knight was poisoned to death. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. In the next 5 minutes, I watched these lively little lives lose their vitality under the strong poison. Knight, weakened, lay on the ground, his eyes filled with hatred looking towards a freshly dug pit nearby. It was a pit where a neighbor had thrown poisoned sausages over the wall. Knight knew everything. "Knight, Knight," I cried loudly, holding Knight's head. In 4 days, the zombie virus would completely break out, paralyzing the world order. People would live amidst blood and panic. Knight, buried in my yard, would rise from the ground 4 days later, his body 3 times its current size, with decaying fur, summoning his army of zombies. What followed was an unforgettable nightmare. Zombies, obeying Knight's commands, would tear everyone around to pieces, except for me. Under Knight's protection, I survived for 3 months, but in the end, he decided to turn me into one of his kind. Thinking of this, I clenched my fist. A plan forming in my mind, living again. I vowed to avenge Knight and the other dogs, but I still hoped that Knight would remain the same big black dog who would rest his head on my knee and wag his tail at me. I absolutely couldn't bear to see his paws dirted. I buried the other dogs, remembering from my past life that only Knight had been infected and awakened by the virus. With a heavy heart, I bought a huge freezer and temporarily placed Knight inside. In my previous life, Knight had been buried underground for 4 days in July when the temperature in City A reached 36 degrees Celsius. When he emerged, his fur was rotting in several places, and he was covered in filth and black blood, which was terrifying. This time, I wanted his coat to be shiny and clean, as he had been fed well by me. Consuming 3 egg yolks a week, he absolutely deserved better. With 3 days left, I noticed that Knight had grown larger, a sign that the zombie virus was taking effect. Having only about 100,000 in savings, I applied for a bunch of credit cards at various banks and took out all sorts of online loans. After all, in 4 days, money would no longer hold any value, and no one would be there to demand repayment. I bought Knight's favorite snacks, 500 bags of pet orbs, over 100 in number, nearly 20 large freezers filled with various animal organs, almost filled all the freezers. When the Knight awakens, like all zombies, he will crave the sweet scent of fresh blood and the fatty richness of animal viscera. At that time, I will guide him to eat these animal organs, abandoning the hunt for humans. My little dog must be clean, lively, and adorably soft. 2 days countdown. I went out again for a day, after the zombie virus outbreak, with no one to maintain electricity and water services. It will be about 3 to 5 days before this place loses power and water. I had someone dig a well in the yard, bought 6 generators, and 10 solar panels. Unexpectedly, when I returned home in the evening, I saw that the Knight had grown more than twice his size, almost too big for the freezers. This Knight, for some unknown reason, has mutated even more fiercely. I could only take him out and use ice blocks to preserve him. He stared with blood-red eyes, his face full of resentment, as if he would go on a rampage once awake. Seeing the Knight like this made me somewhat anxious. I'm not sure if I can control him. Exhausted, I sat on the ground, stroking the big black dog's fur, speaking into his ears. Knight, when you wake up, please don't eat me. I will avenge you and all the other pups, making you a true king. But we also have a deal. I'll give you good food, so please don't eat other humans, okay? Just like I don't let you bite those slippers. Those slippers in the corner, full of holes, chewed by countless puppies. Even Knight contested with those slippers when he first arrived home. Once, I held the slippers in front of Knight for a long time, demonstrating with food and toys. Biting slippers would get a beating. Staying away from slippers would get treats. He seemed to understand, never touching those slippers again, even keeping other dogs away from them. Perhaps this analogy would make Knight understand, sitting on the ground. I reached out to touch Knight's stiff body, suddenly feeling indescribable tension. This life, I've wagered everything on one dog. What if I lose? 1 day countdown. I went to buy some personal necessities, 60 boxes of sanitary pads, 200 boxes of toilet paper, medicines for colds, fevers, external injuries, stomach issues, filling 2 large shelves, over 100 sets of underwear and outerwear. All comfortable and easy to move in. In the apocalypse, no one cares about your looks. 3 trucks filled with rice, flour, and instant noodles. Also, those fast food items, sausages, instant noodles, hot pot bases, spicy noodles, snacks, canned goods, cola, filling an entire room. In the cellar dug by the old landlord, I stocked up fully with vegetables and fruits. Passing by a pet store, I saw a super large dog mat for sale. I calculated the size of the mat, bought over a dozen, planning to piece every 4 together for Knight's use. By the time I finished buying these, it was already 6:30 p.m., looking at the sky, considering those neighbors who went out for work. They should be almost back. Taking a deep breath, holding the sausage buried by Knight, I went door to door, asking who was responsible for this. Naturally, just like in the past, no one would admit it. When they learned that my dogs had died, some even clapped with glee. They were filthy creatures, who knows how many viruses they carried. I always bathed the big dogs every 20 days. And the smaller ones about every 10 days. I also regularly dewormed them, trimmed their nails, squeezed their anal glands, and cleaned their ears. My dogs were very clean. So many dogs, they're frightening to look at. What if they bark at night and disturb the peace? What if they bite someone? Can you afford to compensate? My dogs were well trained and were all street dogs who had endured hardships. After the Knight arrived, they became even more obedient and sensible, never barking at night. And certainly not biting people. Every day you walk those beasts around the neighborhood, scaring my child so much he cries all night. They deserve to die. I would get up every morning at 5 to walk the dogs and go out again after 10 at night, all to avoid crowds. I always kept the leash tighter on children and never let them get too close. I even stepped aside to let others pass first when walking. It was never about the dogs being bad. It was about how their owners raised them, my dogs. And I have always been more civilized than you. Seeing them like this, I no longer argued. I just looked at one middle-aged woman whose gaze shifted away, someone everyone usually called Aunt Valerie. I had already made my plans. Just wait. Tomorrow, Judgment Day will come. The zombie virus has invaded Q City. Early in the morning, news of the mutated rabies virus flooded my phone. I locked the door tightly, holding the nearly 2-meter-tall Knight, sitting in the living room. Underneath it, there was a huge plastic basin, which I had procured from a factory where it was used to hold food waste. I placed a dog bed assembled together in the plastic basin, holding the Knight's head and whispering in its ear, waiting. By noon, chaos had erupted outside. People were running everywhere, followed slowly by zombies chasing after their fresh flesh. Suddenly, my door was smashed open by a zombie. The Knight had not yet awakened, and I had only a bone-chopping knife for protection. I recognized the zombie. He was a middle-aged man who had previously hit the Knight with a stick, claiming the Knight had trampled on their vegetable garden. Clearly, the Knight had never been there. It was other stray dogs that had caused the trouble, but stray dogs have no owners, no one to compensate, so he targeted my house, even in the face of danger. Seeing him transformed into this state, I still felt he deserved it. The uncle, with his stiff neck, took a look inside. His steps rigid as he began to approach me. 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter, he lunged at me, his teeth sharpened by mutation aiming directly for my neck. My bone-chopping knife slipped from my trembling hands. A wave of panic enveloped me, and the knight by my side showed no signs of waking. I smelled the foul stench and felt a sharp sensation on my neck. In that moment, I closed my eyes in despair. There was a crisp snap. I even thought it was my head moving, but when I opened my eyes, I saw a huge dark shadow standing in front of me. The uncle's head had been bitten off. As if disgusted, the knight shook its head. A streak of blood was flung. In the knight's eyes, there was a hint of disgust and even hatred. It recognized this neighbor who had once beaten it. I had prepared myself for everything, but at this moment, seeing the knight wake up emotionless and immediately kill the zombie in front of it, I still felt my legs go weak. By then, the knight had already turned its head, its crimson, icy eyes staring fixedly at me. 7, having just escaped from the brink of death. I found myself back on the line between life and death. I chuckled to myself in resignation, reasoning that dying at the hands of the knight was still better than falling to the zombies. The knight's awakening drew more zombies into the yard. Their faces were ferocious, and they were covered in fresh blood, encircling the knight and me tightly. Nervously, I tried to grab the knight's fur but only touched its icy cold skin. It continued to watch me, those blood-red eyes instilling fear in me. At that moment, my legs trembled, dreading that the knight might command the zombies to attack. "Knight," I called out, noticing its ears twitch slightly, aware that it understood me. I pulled out a toy ball hidden behind me and waved it in front of the knight. "Knight," I saw its eyes flicker, following the ball in my hand. In my past life, I hadn't paid much attention to the knight's preferences, merely seeing it as a demonic beast. Only once did I notice a ball hidden in the corner of the room. Realizing it was different from the other zombies, it was still that little knight. The knight stretched its neck and carefully bit into the ball with its large mouth, but the ball burst. With a pop, both the knight and I jumped. The knight looked somewhat aggrieved at the ball in its mouth, then at its enormous body, seeming at a loss. No longer afraid, I stood up and embraced the knight's broad body. "It's okay, knight, it's okay." The knight's awakening brought more and more zombies into the small yard. Their faces were hideous, their bodies dripping with blood. Yet they stood back respectfully. I grabbed the knight's back fur, climbed onto its body, and sat high, looking down. "Knight, can you make them listen to you?" The knight gently nodded its head. It seemed the knight had undergone some mutations, becoming much smarter than before. "Knight, now command all the zombies not to step into this yard. I couldn't be responsible for the safety of others. Getting too involved would only lead to endless grievances, as long as the knight and I were safe." That was enough. Click, click. The knight clacked its teeth together, producing a chilling sound. The zombies slowly moved their feet, beginning to turn around, but in the next second, the knight suddenly turned its head, staring intently outside. I saw a flash of pink cloth passing by my front door. It was Aunt Valerie. Suddenly, the knight began clacking its teeth, and the zombies crazily surged outward. It was commanding the zombies to chase after Aunt Valerie. It knew she was the enemy who had killed it and its companions. I had to stop it. Once it killed someone, there was no turning back. 8. Knight, remember Aunt Valerie, remember the slipper. You can't bite, you can't kill. If the knight killed someone, everything I had done would be in vain. The knight would never return to being that cute, cuddly little dog. It would become a ruthless killing machine. Unfortunately, it was all in vain as Aunt Valerie was nearly caught. Knight, spare Aunt Valerie. And I'll give you your favorite snacks, including animal organs. The large black dog squinted its eyes and leapt over the courtyard wall, pinning Aunt Valerie beneath it. Aunt Valerie trembled on the ground, repeatedly mumbling, "It wasn't me who killed you. It wasn't me," which only made her seem more suspicious. I hurried after them, seeing her so frightened she was beside herself. It was somewhat satisfying. Suddenly, a thought crossed my mind. This is letting her off too easily. In a world overrun by zombies, living in constant fear and hunger due to the lack of food, reflecting on her past misdeeds would be the best punishment for her. The knight, ready to bite, paused. It stood still, understanding my intent. I wasn't wrong. Just like in its past life, after becoming the zombie king, the knight's intelligence had significantly increased. It understood what I meant, seizing the moment. Aunt Valerie scrambled up from the ground and fled in a panic. I breathed a sigh of relief. Under the watchful eyes of submissive zombies, I approached and hugged the knight, still tense with anger. The apocalypse has just started. We have a long way to go. From that day on, the news that the crazy dog lady, Hao Ling, has a zombie dog spread far and wide. Afterward, everyone gave a wide berth to my yard. No one dared to come any closer, while communication was still functional. I saw on my phone that Aunt Valerie was spreading rumors that the zombie virus was being transmitted by my dogs. I didn't care at all. The hardest part was already behind me. Now, the knight's paws were clean of blood, and it had even driven away the zombies around the yard. It was incredibly well behaved. With the door closed and snacks in hand, I began pampering the dog. After all, It wouldn't be long before someone came knocking. Day 9, I cleaned up the yard and the house. Fed the night some fresh pig lungs, and made myself a bowl of braised beef noodles. I sat at the threshold chatting with the night. On the 5th day after the zombie virus outbreak, the power went out, the water supply stopped too. I set up a solar generator, chilled some watermelons in the well, and kept the air conditioning running as usual, with the hot sun intensifying the stench of the zombies. I had the night order them to keep their distance. I buried my face in the night's fur and took a deep breath. It smelled great, not a hint of decay. Perhaps after becoming a zombie, its skin had stabilized, or maybe because the night was the zombie king, it differed from the others. Inside my house, I drank chilled beverages, petted the night's large head, and browsed for chat groups. Regarding this group, I had left it previously due to conflicts with the local residents over my dogs. I rejoined later with a different account. Unbeknownst to them, I monitored everything from within. In the group, many complained about the unbearable summer heat without air conditioning. Others cried about not having stored water, hoping someone would lend them some in exchange for money. In this post-apocalyptic world, money was worthless, not even as valuable as a bowl of rice. Aunt Valerie re-emerged, still small-minded and holding a grudge about the night's attack days ago. Before the outbreak, I said that dog owner was up to no good. Those filthy dogs, riddled with viruses. Our area has the most zombies. It must be related to that little wretch's dogs. A few days ago, she even dug a well and bought a lot of things to take back home. Perhaps that was all part of her plan. Now, she even has a zombie dog. How terrifying! We should go over and kill her zombie dog and take all her stuff. My family is running out of food, and her house was still cooking this morning. I could smell the aroma drifting to my place. See, the fox's tail is showing now. That night, neither the night nor I could sleep. Yes, zombies do need sleep. Generally, when they stand motionless, they are actually asleep, or rather, they spend most of their time sleeping. So even if they don't eat for a few days, it's not a big problem, late at night. Sure enough, someone sneaked in. Aunt Valerie's talk in the group chat about digging wells and supplies during the day had made my home a target. The intruder was a teenager named Oscar, who tripped over the wall, attracting quite a few zombies to gather around. However, due to the knight's orders, those zombies didn't dare come within 3 meters of the yard. As soon as he entered, he headed straight for the well in the courtyard, grabbed a bucket, and started to guzzle the water. It was clear he was desperately thirsty. I knew this Oscar kid. He lived next door to my neighbor. His parents died in a car accident 2 years ago, and he had since been living with his grandfather. A few days ago, when the zombie outbreak occurred, his grandfather was bitten while working in the fields and never came back. There was a discussion in the group chat back then about how tough Oscar's life was. His family was one of the few neighbors who were kind to the night and other such dogs. The old man, when he was alive, used to pet the knight's head. I remember in my previous life, the old man was also killed by a bite, so before the zombie virus arrived this time, I had warned him not to go out for a few days, but the old man didn't take it seriously. I just watched from the side, not stopping him until he had finished drinking and was satiated. Then I walked up with the knight and grabbed Oscar by the collar. "Hand over the supplies." Oscar, who was about 13 or 14. Started trembling in fear when he saw the knight behind me. "What supplies? Do you think you can drink our water for free? If you don't hand over the supplies, I'll have my dog bite you to death." The knight bared his teeth from behind me, supporting my stance. I didn't want to be harsh on him, but in these apocalyptic times, I had to act this way to protect our well. And I needed him to spread the word that our well water could be exchanged for supplies. In the end, Oscar reluctantly took off his clothes, left in just his underwear, and shakily scrambled back home along the wall. Since I had taken a liking to his clothes, I gave him 3 extra buckets of water, asking him to bring 2 more sets of clothes next time and to take his own water. Under the night breeze, Oscar, with his pale belly exposed, ran back and forth like a piece of fresh meat, yet no zombies chased him. I had already warned the zombies through the night to stay away from here. The last time Oscar left, joyfully carrying bottles of mineral water, I grabbed his arm. "This is groundwater. Make sure to boil it before drinking to avoid diarrhea," I reminded Oscar. Oscar pursed his lips, silent, but his eyes welled up with tears. I knew it wasn't easy for him, but I also knew I couldn't say more. This was my way of taking care of him, and I would keep an eye on this kid in the future. Oscar became my advertisement, telling everyone nearby, "You can exchange supplies for well water from that house." That house, referring to mine, had become somewhat famous in the neighborhood. People generally avoid mentioning my name, referring to me as either that crazy woman or the dog lady, and only on their politest days as "What's her name?" That evening, several people came by with old clothes and other unwanted items, hoping to exchange them for water. I turned them all away. "Are you joking? It's the end of the world." And they think I need money or clothes. Just because I accepted Oscar's exchange doesn't mean I'll accept theirs. I'll take grains, oils, animal offal, and some snacks, but don't try to fob me off with useless stuff. I didn't give anyone face. I was as dismissive as one could be. These people had made the effort to come, and were preparing to guilt trip me right at the vacuum zone by my doorstep. I pointed towards the zombies being attracted by the noise and sneered, "If you don't leave now, you won't be able to enjoy any water anyway." After that, I closed the door, calmed my dog, and went back to sleep. The next day, I hung a sign at the door: 1 kilo of rice for 3 buckets of water, a bag of cornmeal for 2 buckets, a kilo of vegetables for 4 buckets. Snacks depended on how much I liked them and how many buckets they were worth. Other daily necessities could be exchanged for water just like the grains. And water exchanges were only available from 8 to 10 p.m. This time slot was when the zombies were the most dormant, though I didn't know why. Anyone who dared disturb me outside these hours would get a taste of my dog. Also, those who had previously mistreated my dog weren't welcome at all. Despite the risks of exposure, I posted the water exchange rules in the group chat as well. After all, in a few days, most homes without generators would run out of phone battery. This caused quite a stir. Aunt Valerie was the first in the group chat to rant, accusing me of causing discord among neighbors and being conniving, even suggesting I was trying to profit amidst the apocalypse. This time, no one in the group supported her. After all, no one wanted to get on my bad side. I directly confronted Aunt Valerie. "Aunt Valerie, dare to step into my house, and I'll have night bite you. You won't get a drop of our well water." Aunt Valerie cursed a few more words, but I couldn't be bothered with her, like a grasshopper after autumn. She wouldn't last much longer. Eating an ice pop, I pet Knight, who was dozing off in the yard, and whispered into his ear, "Knight, our plan for revenge begins now." By that night, most people's phones were dying, and the residents' chat became silent. However, at night, within 3 meters of my door, people quickly gathered in the zombie-free zone. They were all residents who came with goods to exchange for water. I exchanged their items for water according to the sign I had put up. I encountered a family that had previously slandered my dog for terrifying their child, and I flatly refused them. The middle-aged man cursed but didn't dare say more under Knight's stern gaze and left. How he lived after that was none of my concern. Over the next few days, with word spreading, more people came to exchange water at my house. Among the crowd one day, there was a sleazy bald man, Aunt Valerie's son, in his 30s, a total mama's boy. I even suspected he had something to do with the poisoned sausages. Once, when I came home late from overtime, this creep tried to corner me in an alley. Fortunately, I taught him a lesson with a swift kick. Not long after that incident, my dog was harmed. To say there's no connection here, I'd hardly believe it. "Get lost. Don't come to my house. If you come any closer, I'll set the dog on you." The knight behind me had already noticed him and was stooping down, making threatening gestures. The man, pale-faced, seeing that I was unyielding, snatched a bucket from an old lady nearby and ran off. What a coward. Out of all the people there, he chose the oldest and weakest to prey on. I didn't say a word. And the knight behind me was quiet too. The knight and I even exchanged a glance. The man, seeing that no one stopped him, seemed a bit smug, but as he turned to leave, running out 3 meters from my house into the no man's land, a tall zombie pounced on him, biting into his neck. Blood sprayed over a meter high, hitting an artery. The crowd stirred, but I quickly grabbed the knight and told everyone. You all saw it. He stole from someone and recklessly ran into a pack of zombies. My dog didn't bite him, at most. I just didn't order the zombies to leave earlier. Normally, when the neighbors go out to fetch water, the knight quietly commands the zombies to move away. As for the fact that the zombies listen to the knight, I'm not planning to share that secret with anyone. Otherwise, those moral bindings would start targeting me again. That night, I heard crying and cursing coming from Aunt Valerie's next door, blaming me. The mourning lasted all night. Her zombified son, attracted by the noise, repeatedly slammed into her door, bloodied, and almost broke in. Eventually, she stopped shouting and just wept quietly inside. That night, I stroked the knight's fur and whispered in its ear, "See, knight, isn't this much more satisfying than just snapping it off?" The knight shook its body, comfortably quivering its glossy fur under my touch. After a long while, it rolled over like it did when it was younger, exposing its belly to me. Its crimson eyes held a trace of longing, as if saying, "Rub my belly. Quick, rub it." I couldn't resist and threw myself onto the knight, vigorously scratching its itchy spots. "Knight, you're too adorable." 2 months later, I noticed an increasing number of zombies around, many dressed like workers from a food processing plant a few kilometers away. Usually, zombies don't stray far from where they turned, which was odd. Moreover, some of these zombies seemed to possess basic intelligence and didn't listen much to the knight, taking advantage of the dark and windy night. The night dealt with a few disobedient ones, but within 2 days, even more zombies flooded in, ravaging the surrounding crops. The native zombies, under the night's command, had been circling the fields. Just as the crops were about to mature, I had my eye on several abandoned fields, keeping zombies around to deter people, planning to harvest them in a few days. Unexpectedly, in just a few days, a large area was destroyed. These days, the night seemed anxious, always setting out 2 balls in front of me with a pile of stones on the side, which was baffling. I felt it had something it wanted to say to me. My ability to express myself is limited. The neighbors who come to fetch water, for their own safety, only come once every 4 or 5 days. A few households that hold a grudge against my family initially tried to sneak in to steal water or disguise themselves to get through, but they were all scared off by the night. They had no choice but to pay higher prices to obtain water resources from other neighbors. As for this, I don't care at all. It just makes them more anxious and stressed. That's my goal. Most of the other citizens can only provide vegetables they grow themselves. Every household nearby has a yard where everyone can grow some vegetables. Even in my own home, I've planted a long patch of leeks and spinach in the corner of the yard. I know that many families have already run out of stored food. Every day, I take out the recorder I bought in advance, hoping to hear some official news, but so far, it has only been, "Citizens, please pay attention to your safety, reduce outings, and store supplies. The authorities are working hard to rescue and will distribute supplies soon. Hang in there, hang in there, hang in there." There has been no new progress for the time being. That day, I heard some commotion nearby, like people wailing. I quickly put down the toy ball I was holding and ran outside with the night. The night leaped to the gate, arching its back in a pose ready to attack. A sudden thought crossed my mind. I remembered that in my past life, around this time, the night's temperament changed drastically, almost turning me into a zombie. In that past life, after a spree of violence, the night entered a docile mode, always staying by my side to protect me. Even though I disliked it for being dirty, smelly, and almost lifeless, and even threatened it with a stick to make it go away, it remained loyally by my side. Later, after some psychological adjustments, I decided to accept this big black dog that I had rescued from a dog trader. No matter how it changed, when it looked at the toy ball, there was still a sparkle in its eyes. Countless times, when I turned around, it was watching me. Its eyes were filled with loyalty and affection. It was still my night, but just when I was about to accept it, it began to change, just like now, anxious and restless, often going out to fight and returning with injuries, becoming weaker and weaker, until one time, its tail was torn off, and its skin was so damaged that there was hardly a good spot left. It walked towards me step by step, its eyes filled with pain and obsession. I knew it wanted me to become one of them. A thought struck me. Was there a hidden reason why the night from my past life had killed me? Thinking this, I rushed to the door. But the night had already dashed out before me, not turning back no matter how much I called. I ran onto the street, holding a cleaver cautiously, scared that a zombie might suddenly appear, but there were no zombies. I ran a few hundred meters and didn't see a single one. The human screams were still in the distance. People had already started to open their windows to look around. When I almost reached the alley entrance, I saw the night arching its back and confronting someone. I was stunned. Opposite, there was a person over 2 meters tall. His face was grotesque, marked by a huge scar, and his blue skin was veined with blood vessels. Upon seeing me, he greeted me with a sinister smile. "Little lady, we meet again." This person, or rather, this talking zombie, took me by surprise. I studied his face closely, a memory surfacing in my mind. A weak, big black dog, the dark red blood in a cramped cage, a sleazy man and the long scar on his face. I pointed at his nose, threatening to report him, but he didn't care. He even pressed his cigarette but harshly on the big black dog beside him. "It's just an animal. You think it's so important." This zombie, in his life, was a dog thief, a damn torturer. "What's wrong, little lady? Don't you recognize me?" The man in front of me stood up and slowly walked towards me. The knight made a threatening gesture to protect me, clearly afraid of this man. After all, this man had once kept him in a tiny cage, electrocuted him, whipped him, and left him covered in wounds. The dog leash, as thin as a wire, had left a scar on the knight's neck that took a long time to heal. At that moment, as I looked at the imposing figure of the zombie and considered his ability to speak, I finally understood the meaning behind the 2 balls the knight had shown me. There were 2 zombie kings. From the knight's slightly backward turned ears, I could tell he was scared. I finally understood why the knight had bitten me in a past life. He must have realized he couldn't beat this man. But in this life, I wouldn't let the knight lose. "Knight, don't be afraid. Now is your time for revenge. He's not human. You can bite him hard. Make him suffer as you once did." I gently stroked the knight's fur, encouraging him, his body gradually calmed, his ears returning to their normal position, his legs firmly planted on the ground, his red eyes intently focused on the man, ready to pounce and break his neck at any movement. The man, seemingly surprised by the knight's transformation, frowned as if looking for a handy tool. It didn't seem like he had been a zombie king for long. From my observations, zombie kings develop self-healing abilities in the later stages. About 2 to 3 months in, yet, the marks of a zombie bite were still visible on his neck. This was when he was most vulnerable. Strike him when he's down. The knight charged forward. The large dog, over 2 meters long, with powerful biting force, clamped onto the man's arm. In an instant, it tore off a large chunk of flesh. "Ah, you beast." The man grabbed a stick nearby and struck at the knight. They say dogs and wolves have iron heads and copper backs, but tofu wastes. Having fought countless times with dogs before, the man accurately targeted the knight's waist. The knight fell to the ground, the earth itself seeming to tremble. The zombies nearby, who had been still, began to stir. "Knight, get up." The man went to the side, punched through a glass window, and grabbed a large shard, preparing to strike the knight. Holding my bone-chopping knife, I stood guard by the knight's side, my whole body trembling. Before the man could rush over, the knight stood up again. His eyes red as dripping blood, he took 2 steps back and quickly launched a second attack, this time aiming for the man's neck. The man dodged and simultaneously extended his hand, thrusting a shard of glass toward the knight. The glass sliced through the knight's fur, and flesh tumbled out, leaving a wound over a foot long that was deep enough to expose bone. Yet, the creature showed no fear, standing its ground, baring its teeth and growling low at the man. It was evident that its legs trembled momentarily. Meanwhile, the zombie king had one of his arms torn off and stumbled backwards 2 steps, his shoulder bone laid bare. A hint of retreat flashed in the man's eyes. He backed up 2 steps and swiftly launched a second attack, this time aiming for the man's neck. The knight narrowly claimed victory, just as the knight was about to pursue his advantage. The man suddenly commanded his zombies to attack me. The knight had no choice but to stop entangling with the man and rushed over to shield me. Taking advantage of this, the man quickly fled. Before leaving, he glared fiercely at me and the knight, warning, "You wait." Back home, I carefully examined the knight's body, finding no injuries other than the gash. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I prepared a hearty dinner to aid its recovery and wrapped its wound in gauze, finally allowing myself to relax, but I knew this was not the end. The man was injured, and many of his intelligent zombies needed more fresh blood. Our area, protected by the night, had become densely populated. Conflict and carnage were inevitable. To calm my nerves, I set up a small hot pot on the stove and pondered over plans to survive the looming crisis amid the steaming vapors. After a few quiet days, I harvested the nearly ripe crops during this peaceful time. I saw several families also gathering their crops nearby. This would likely make life a bit easier for the local residents. However, it wasn't long before several families were attacked. Such large-scale, premeditated attacks were beyond ordinary humans' ability to resist. There was one family I intended to save, but I was a step too late. Blood flowed from their courtyard to the street. A family of 6 was being devoured by dozens of zombies. I knew this family, 2 elderly, 2 middle-aged adults, and a pair of twin children. The middle-aged adults were under great stress and seldom seen due to their busy work. Sometimes the elderly would walk the twins around the nearby alleys and work in the fields at dawn. Both over 70, the elderly couple were very close, often seen hand in hand with hoes in the fields. Just seeing their smiles made one feel that life was tranquil. We didn't interact much due to the distance between us after the zombie outbreak. However, they spoke up for us a few times. Just the day before yesterday, they had cheerfully told me, "Though life is tough now, our crops are about to yield, and we can hold on for another year. Our area is much better than others. At least the zombies don't ravage the crops." After speaking, the old man winked at me, glancing at the knight lying beside us. But now, I would never see that old man wink again. The scent of blood and decay was a nauseating stimulus that made me feel like I was on the verge of collapse. That man, even in death turned to a zombie, was detestable. To protect the nearby residents, I took out some of the stored animal viscera and had the knight distributed among the other zombies. In a world overrun by zombies, tensions between humans and the undead continued to escalate. Men loyal to the opposing side, known as the lackeys, were a constant threat. Whenever one was spotted, they were immediately dealt with. However, this did nothing to curb the rampant misbehavior of the zombies. For several consecutive days, families were harassed by zombies every night. Although the knight and I intervened whenever we could, several households still suffered casualties. This was a dire situation. If the man's power grew stronger, the knight and I would likely be the first to perish. From that day on, People began setting up tents at our doorstep. In the entire area, our home was known for its stringent defenses, with no zombie daring to come within 3 meters. These people bore us no grudges, and I went along with their arrangements. They were very respectful, never entering the yard and continuing to fetch water as usual, without seeking any special favors due to their proximity. One day, a little girl entered. I was eating an ice cream and watching the knight process information gathered by his zombie minions when the man, who lived in a nearby factory about 2 kilometers away, came up in conversation. The knight was almost fully recovered, while the man was likely still injured. I planned a surprise attack with the knight. Suddenly, the knight stood up and let out a warning growl towards the door, drawing my attention to the girl. I want to touch it, she said, astonishing me. Was this little girl really that bold? Yet, she bravely walked forward and gently placed her hand on the knight's forehead. Her parents arrived shortly after and were terrified at the sight, but the girl simply smiled and said, "When I was little, we had a little black dog at home." Her sweet smile even stunned the knight. From that day on, word spread in the neighborhood that the knight did not attack children or their relatives. More people started setting up tents at our doorstep, however. Aunt Valerie next door began to complain. She grumbled about the crowd disrupting her rest, and claimed that harboring a zombie was inviting disaster. But now, no one paid her any mind, letting her rant as she pleased. Her son had been missing for a few days, and I suspected he had left with the man during his last visit. After observing for some time, I realized that Aunt Valerie's son was a rare intelligent zombie. Unexpectedly, after her daytime tirades, Aunt Valerie also disappeared without a trace. As the months passed and the weather began to cool, the zombies became slower and life became easier for the people. The knight had visited the old factory several times looking for the man but never found him. I figured the man must also have developed a self-healing ability. Things were getting complicated. After the last time the knight communicated using 2 balls to indicate the existence of 2 zombie kings. He used apples and oranges to express his fondness for our neighbors. His favorites were apples. One was Oscar, who had once stolen water and now pitched a tent at our doorstep. Just yesterday, he tried to move into my yard, persistently asking to be my brother, to avoid setting a precedent that would allow more people to move into the yard. I refused his request but allowed him to set up his tent right at the front door, giving him free access to the yard. The other favorite was the little girl who had touched his head. She and Oscar had become good friends. Despite their 5 or 6 year age difference, their shared hobbies of playing checkers and petting dogs had bonded them closely. He generally liked oranges. It was those neighbors who had no quarrels with it, and there were quite a few of them. Nowadays, most of those who are alive are of this sort. Dislikes were represented with walnuts, which stood for people like Aunt Valerie who had bullied it. The most hated was symbolized by an ugly stone, and it was only one man. Then for its favorites, it flipped over its beloved plush toy, clawed at it a bit, then pointed at me, its whole dog face bursting into the brightest smile. Yes, what Knight loved most was me. If it weren't for its bright red eyes, you'd never know it was a zombie dog. Unexpectedly one day, Knight suddenly vomited blood. The blood was black, thick, and foul-smelling. It staggered a few steps, then collapsed to the ground and never got up again. In a panic, I called the neighbors for help, and we carried Knight back inside, placing him in his little dog bed. But Knight lay there without even opening his eyes, occasionally twitching. Could this be poisoning? One of the neighbors, who knew a bit about medicine, asked stutteringly. I was very anxious, not knowing if even the zombie king could be killed by poison. And naturally, no one else could tell me either. With night down, the nearby zombies began to grow restless. This caused panic among the neighbors. Some even feared that Knight might mutate again and attack them, unheeding to anyone. Others feared that if Knight died, they would lose his protection and be attacked by other zombies. Only a few neighbors, who were close on normal days, stayed by Knight's side, even suggesting I try to wash his stomach. I watched Knight, weak and frail, tears slowly sliding down my face. The large, weak dog seemed to sense my distress, extending its tongue to comfortingly lick the back of my hand. The damp touch made me even more heartbroken. I think Knight must have been poisoned. I had to come to this conclusion. I clenched my teeth, thinking about how closely I usually watch Knight. He didn't really like most people and wouldn't eat anyone else's food, so the person who poisoned him must be someone he knew. As for why someone would poison Knight, it likely had something to do with that zombie king man. I estimated that the man would attack, at the earliest tonight, or at the latest by tomorrow. I had already told the nearby residents to go home, lock their doors and windows, and stay inside no matter what happened. If possible, they should move out. Among them, a few people looked evasive and quietly slipped away, showing no concern on their faces. It's in critical moments like these that you see people's true colors. Among these people were those who usually flattered, always praising how handsome Knight was. Knight had saved their lives several times. I sneered inwardly but kept my composure. After all, seeking benefits and avoiding harm is human nature. I gave a signal to Oscar in the crowd, and he immediately ran out, following the few who had left. After a while, Oscar came back, angrily telling me that one of the young men, in his 20s with blonde hair, had taken something and ran off towards the abandoned factory. He must have gone to tip someone off. With this, it was almost certain that the zombie king man had someone poison Knight. I urged the neighbors to leave again. I would stay here, keeping company with Knight. But a middle-aged woman with a pale face, leading her 2-year-old child, tears streaming down his face, he said, "Now, where is there any place left to move to? Yeah. If it weren't for the night, we would have been dead by now." Another man chimed in. Following that, more people stood up. "If you ask me, we should band together. We've gathered our crops, and I've got hundreds of pounds stored at home, enough to last until next year. I still have seeds, and I plan to plant wheat when spring comes. There's no way I'm leaving," one declared. "Right, those zombies are slow. I've killed a few myself. Let's defend this place together and wait for the night to recover." Exactly. I heard on the radio that humanity hasn't been wiped out yet. The authorities have recaptured several major cities, and they're even developing a drug to combat the zombies. We can definitely hold out until the end. The Knight is so strong. Isn't he the king of zombies? He's sure to recover. With the Knight here, we can survive. This isn't just your fight or the Knight's fight. It's a war for all of us nearby. Tears in my eyes. I watched these people, unable to utter a single word. I never expected that at this moment, so many would stand up. I suddenly thought of myself, how I used to be so disliked. Walking the dog on the streets, everyone would steer clear, fearing the dogs were as disliked as I was. Having been an orphan, I was never good at interacting with people, preferring the company of simple animals instead. All along, they labeled me as a weirdo. When the Knight and other dogs were being bullied, I used to dwell on the negatives, even thinking none of the neighbors were good. I always felt that the world wasn't kind enough, that it was unfair to me. But after spending time with these people, I realized there are still kind-hearted people out there, especially after they stopped seeing the Knight with prejudice. They even became someone endearing. After a great deal of internal struggle, I finally lifted my head and looked at the neighbors gathered around me. "I have a plan. You're right. This is a war for all of us. We should unite." That evening, as dusk enveloped the surroundings, noisy footsteps approached. It was the man leading his zombie squad. The zombies dispersed, rushing into the houses around, while the man came straight to my yard. In his hands, he held a wooden stick and a thin pea chain. Seeing me in the night, a sinister smile appeared on his purplish face. "What? Not letting your dog bite me now? A dog is just a dog. Animals will never overcome humans." Without a word, I tightened my grip on the bone-chopping knife, sweat slowly dripping from my forehead. This moment, it was my turn to protect the Knight, but the man was incredibly fast. In the blink of an eye, he moved right beside me. His massive head appeared before me, red eyes staring at me, a mocking smile on his lips. "Weren't you threatening to sue me before? But I told you, an animal is just an animal. In the end, they only fined me a bit of money. Didn't do much to me, did they? Now I am the king here. An animal is still no match for me. Isn't it supposed to be loyal and protect its master? Let it come and save you now." The man's arm had regenerated, the muscles on it even more robust. Clearly, he had consumed plenty of people during this time. Knight lay beside me, and I stood alone to protect it. You wouldn't know this, but the kings of zombies devouring each other greatly enhances their strength. "This beast is definitely going to die today." As the man spoke, he licked his lips. "You're not human, you're the real beast." At that moment, I truly despised myself for always being civilized. When it really mattered, all I could think of were words like beast and bastard. "Don't worry, the beast will be devouring you shortly. It's been a long time since I've seen such a well-fed human. You seem to be doing quite well." The man licked his lips again and opened his mouth wide at me. In my hand, the machete was just a decoy. In my other hand, I held a small electric baton, turned up to full power. The moment the man lunged to bite, I shoved the electric baton directly into his mouth. The sound of crackling filled the room. I had practiced the movement of swinging my arm all day for this moment. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. "Ah!" The man screamed loudly, rolling on the ground. He didn't notice the huge dark shadow slowly enveloping him. It was the Knight. The Knight stood up. It opened its massive mouth and bit down on the man. Standing to the side, I still held the electric baton in my hand, but a cold smirk appeared on my lips. "I really should thank Aunt Valerie. If it weren't for her, how could we have lured you out?" The man narrowly avoided the Knight's bite, but his shoulder was completely pierced through. His pupils contracted. You were pretending all this time to trick me." About a week ago, Oscar grabbed Emma by the collar and brought her to me. Oscar was livid, accusing Emma of being a traitor. I thought it was just a childish disagreement until Oscar mentioned he saw Aunt Valerie talking to Emma. Turns out Aunt Valerie wasn't dead or missing. She was summoned by her somewhat intelligent zombie son to join the man for some pleasures. According to the young girl Emma, Aunt Valerie had started contacting her about 10 days ago, always bringing some candy and fruit and telling her not to mention it to her family. Emma hadn't had sweets or fruits for a long time, so naturally, she didn't tell anyone and just kept stuffing the treats into her mouth. In just a couple of days, Emma was bought over by Aunt Valerie. Oscar found out about Emma's candy and learned about her contact with Aunt Valerie, believing there was something unusual about it, and brought her to me. At that time, I told Oscar not to make a fuss and asked Emma to keep quiet to see what Aunt Valerie was really up to. Sure enough, yesterday Aunt Valerie's true intentions were revealed. Aunt Valerie lied to Emma, claiming she had a falling out with the Knight and me, which forced her to leave home. Now she wanted to return and mend things with the Knight, even bringing tasty treats for him, but she knew she couldn't approach the Knight herself, so she asked Emma if she wanted to feed the big dog. Emma nodded, and Aunt Valerie handed her a bag full of animal organs, pretending to comply. Emma later handed over the organs Aunt Valerie had given her to me. I saw that these organs were all the Knight's favorites. I asked Emma, and she said she hadn't told Aunt Valerie what the Knight liked, so there must still be a traitor among my neighbors. Upon further inspection of these organs, I immediately discovered they were poisoned. Sometimes, I also get some animal livers to let Emma and Oscar feed the Knight. Now, with everyone's supplies running low, Knights only eat animal organs, so I never thought someone would actually poison the organs to target them. If it weren't for Oscar's early warning, the innocent little Emma might have been easily deceived. Knowing this, I discussed with the two children to put on a play. Dealing with brainless zombies can be resolved with force, but with Aunt Valerie stirring up trouble, it's inevitable that more humans could be deceived. Human hearts are the hardest to manage, so we pretended that the Knight had been poisoned. I placed fake black blood in its mouth in advance and made it simulate convulsions and weakness, causing a minor riot among the zombies at the door, as if they were out of control. At that moment, I decided to use this play to eliminate our adversaries. Sure enough, several families left, and we caught the traitor. Huang Mao. Some might have wanted to save themselves, but others could have been bribed by Aunt Valerie. Then, the Knight stood up and bit into a man's head. Flesh flew about as the Knight bit off half of the man's head, but it moved quickly and soon left the room. With half a face, bloodied and fierce, he glared at me and the Knight beside me. You wait, once I recover, and that detestable woman too. I won't spare her for failing to manage even a simple task. I snorted coldly, not wanting to deal with him, not intending to let him return today. The Zombie King, despite losing half his face, could still move freely, his wounds not even bleeding. The Knight rushed forward, engaging in a chase with the adversary. I moved back, retreating into the cellar to avoid causing any trouble for the Knight. Inside the cellar, a LCD screen displayed the ongoing battle between the Knight and the man. The man, armed with a club and a rope, was formidable and fast, but the Knight, with its physical advantage and 4 legs, soon pinned the man to the ground. I sat eating chips, zooming in on the man's terrified face on the screen, feeling immensely satisfied. Aren't you going to take care of the other residents? I can let those zombies wildly attack them at my command, and I can also order them to spare them, threatened the man. Seeing the Knight ignoring him, the man raised his voice, as if taunting me. You wretched girl. I'll let those zombies devour all the others, not sparing a single one, eating those they can't kill. I always do what I say, but a thin door panel indeed couldn't stop a frenzied army of zombies. Yet the man didn't know that his army of zombies had already been defeated, for at every household they reached, there were no people, only bags of blood prepared and hidden in the empty houses lured these scent-driven zombies into a trap. As the zombies entered the prepared houses and started fighting over the blood bags, people used ready nets to trap all the zombies. Then, they were systematically exterminated. This was my plan. The Knight and I dealt with the Zombie King. The residents used their wits to handle the unruly zombies, and the vulnerable ones hid in Oscar's house. Oscar's house had a cellar similar to mine. Above the cellar, others had placed cars and furniture to provide cover. The zombies wouldn't find them there. Oscar's voice came through the walkie-talkie placed nearby. Sister, we've finished everything on our side. How about you? I looked at the screen, observing a hint of human-like sarcasm in the Knight's eyes as he slightly curled his lips. Almost done. As I finished speaking, the Knight opened his mouth and bit down on the man's head. In one swift motion, I couldn't help but turn my head away, not wanting to watch the Knight eat like this. Even though this Zombie King was highly beneficial, it was still disgusting. I had already decided that later, I would make the Knight eat some animal organs to cleanse its mouth and then brush its teeth. What I didn't expect was that the Knight didn't continue eating the man's corpse. Instead, it threw the body into a nearby area designated for processing zombie remains. Seemingly disgusted, when it came back, it wagged its tail vigorously at me, its eyes shining brightly, like a silly little dog seeking praise. I took out the snacks I had prepared earlier from the windowsill and fed them to him, package by package. You worked hard today, and just like that, the crisis was averted. Everyone was overjoyed. Unexpectedly, Aunt Valerie died, killed by her own zombie son. Aunt Valerie's son, perhaps due to a mutation that gave him higher intelligence, had survived several attacks, but suddenly, he went mad, his eyes blood red, running wildly without care, ignoring even the loss of an arm and a leg injury. After he ran out, he rampaged through the streets as if searching for something, until he saw Aunt Valerie, who was hiding behind my yard, watching the commotion at my house. The zombie son approached Aunt Valerie quietly and pounced on her in an instant. By the time someone got there, they found Aunt Valerie with her abdomen ripped open, lying dead in a corner, her blood pooled around her. Hearing this news, I was silent for a long time. I remembered what the Zombie King had said, that he wouldn't spare Aunt Valerie, so it must have been him who, while in the yard, ordered Aunt Valerie's zombie son to attack her. Even though this acted as my revenge, for some reason, I couldn't feel happy about it. Aunt Valerie's zombie son was dealt with by the people, and Aunt Valerie herself was sent to a central facility for cremation along with other zombie bodies, the remaining obedient zombies. Just like when the zombie virus first broke out, came to my yard and paid homage to the knight, but this time, they were more respectful, some even trembling slightly. The knight stood proudly in the center of the yard, his dark, shiny fur making him look quite impressive. From that day on, our neighborhood became a paradise. Humans and zombies coexisted for the first time under the knight's leadership. Residents could farm and breed livestock, and the animal organs would be fed to the nearby zombies. One auntie always went to the nearby mountains to catch rabbits and pheasants to raise, and after fattening the rabbits, she fed them to a little girl zombie nearby. Every time, she watched the little zombie girl eat with anticipation. What if one day, our country really develops a cure for the zombie virus? My daughter could come back. When the first snow of winter fell, all the zombies disappeared. We searched for a long time and finally found them in an abandoned building. Motionless and stiff, piled up together, they had entered hibernation mode. Even the knight spent more time sleeping, lazily lounging by the stove all day. I don't feel like moving. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, the local residents came to visit and exchange New Year's greetings. Some even brought their own homemade dumplings. I also took out some pre-prepared cooked food to exchange with them. At this time, cooked food has become a precious and non-renewable resource. I never imagined that there would come a day when I could be so close with my neighbors. They looked at me with kind and friendly eyes, even showing reverence and gratitude towards Night, my dog. This was unlike the times before the apocalypse and in the previous life, where there was only fear and disgust. Traditionally, no work is to be done on the first day of the Lunar New Year, not even taking out the trash, so I just nestled on the sofa, stroking Knight's soft fur with one hand and fiddling with the radio with the other. Since yesterday, the radio has been broadcasting good news. Most cities in our country have been rescued, many bases have been established, and citizens are encouraged to go to the nearest one. For cities that haven't been rescued yet, supplies will be dropped in the near future. I heard that one of the drop locations isn't far from us. Additionally, there has been new progress in the research on the zombie virus. We believe that in the near future, we will overcome this virus and rebuild a beautiful homeland for humanity. On the 5th day of the Lunar New Year, our remote suburb finally received its first supply drop. I shared this news with the nearby residents. Since no one knew exactly how much supplies there would be, we decided to let 5 robust middle-aged men accompany me and Night, unexpectedly, when we arrived. Another group was already there. Upon seeing Night, their guns were aimed at us. "Prepare to fire," ordered the stern-faced captain. I nervously stepped in front of Night, who sensed the hostility and took a defensive stance. "My dog won't attack people," I quickly explained. The ones guarding a container of supplies were not just anyone. They were a squad in green combat uniforms. Each of them had a determined look, robust bodies, and guns ready to fire at a light pull of the trigger, which could easily shoot through Night. Sweat trickled down my forehead. The young captain in front clearly didn't believe me. "We've killed countless zombies, and the one behind you is a zombie king. Very dangerous. They possess higher intelligence. We once encountered a zombie king who kept local residents captive, just so it could consume fresh blood at will. Don't be deceived by them," he stated resolutely. I could only spread my arms wide, shielding Night firmly behind me. "My Night is different." The young captain remained unmoved. I understood their countless pains and the wars they had survived to be here. They had even lost many loved ones and friends. They had encountered countless zombies, some even more terrifying than men. They had no reason to easily trust Night. At that moment, I felt the crowd around me stir. The residents who had followed me stepped forward, forming a wall in front of Night. "This comrade, please believe us. This dog." It has saved us countless times and it won't hurt anyone. Yes, comrade, if it weren't for this dog, we would have been dead long ago. My little stinker at home was literally rescued from the jaws of zombies, and we can all testify to that. He's a good dog, not a mindless zombie. He's never eaten anyone, never bitten anyone. I can testify to that. One statement after another. I watched incredulously as people stood in front of me and the knight, desperately trying to vindicate the knight as they spoke to the team members. Tears gradually moistened my eyes. Turning around, I saw the knight had already abandoned his aggressive posture, his eyes shimmering with an indescribable gleam. Finally, the squad members lowered their guns. The young captain approached the knight. I quickly urged the knight to lower his head, presenting his big, soft, shiny black head to the captain's hands. The captain gently stroked the knight's ears, his mouth agape in surprise. This is a miracle. Soon, the story of me, the knight, and the local residents caught the attention of the authorities. At first, no one believed there really was a zombie king who had never harmed anyone and had even saved an entire region's population. But when officials came to investigate, all the residents became witnesses. The quiet, gentle knight, with love in his eyes, stood before them as living proof. Our entire region was then relocated to a base. They needed the knight, a tremendous workforce, to help build the base. Carrying supplies and deterring nearby zombies became the knight's job. Of course, animal innards kept him fed. Thanks to the knight, as his family, I managed to live quite comfortably within the base. Meanwhile, a vaccine against the zombie virus was successfully developed. I registered the knight for it. It was a bright and sunny day, the weather was warming up, and zombies had been eliminated in most parts of the country. For the few remaining, the officials had decided to administer the vaccine. The knight was among the first to receive the injection. He lay obediently in a stark white room. A doctor injected the red vaccine into his body. I stood by, constantly comforting him. "Knight, no matter what happens, you must pull through," I said. Nearby residents, having heard the news, stood outside the room, worried. The knight gently licked the back of my hand, his red eyes fixed on me. He placed his favorite ball in my palm and nudged it with his nose. I understood he was saying I was as dear to him as the ball. His favorite thing. "Knight, you're my favorite too," I whispered as I gently hugged his neck. The reaction to the vaccine was milder than expected. The knight just slept for a while. When he opened his eyes, the blood red had faded, replaced by normal dark eyes. Officials came to take blood samples for testing, and all his indicators were completely normal. Ironically, his body size couldn't return to normal. Looking at this huge dog, I worried about the amount of dog food he would need every day. Now that we no longer needed the knight to chase away zombies, I wondered if his secure position with the officials was still secure. On the summer solstice, the last zombie in the world was successfully turned back into a human after receiving the official vaccine. Humanity had finally defeated the zombie virus. It's worth mentioning that the zombies near my home were mostly relatives of the local residents. Under the knight's guidance, most of these zombies had not attacked people and had hidden during the final purge. Ultimately, after receiving their injections, they became normal again. The neighbor aunt's daughter was reunited with her once more, and Oscar's grandfather, as the world began to regain order. I found myself unable to return to my little cabin, because the knight was eventually recruited by the authorities, becoming a secure and well-fed civil servant, and I, benefiting from its influence, received an official position and became its dog trainer. We followed the post-disaster reconstruction team, traveling through the ruins within the country, searching for those who needed help. After the internet was restored, many people shared photos and videos of the knight online. The knight became a viral sensation, even gaining its own fan base. Holding my phone, I stroked the knight's soft fur, smiled, and typed a message amidst the streaming comments. Who could resist a handsome, cute, kind, and loyal big dog?